"Sir, can you do one thing for me?" A girl without legs asked a Hell's Angel. He broke down, the heat came down like a hammer. Hawk parked his motorcycle in front of the Rusty Spur diner, the tires crunching on the gravel. He swung his leg off the bike and stood there for a moment, wiping the sweat from his brow with the back of his hand. The Arizona sun hung high and white, making everything look bleached and tired. Hawk was a big man, 45 years old. A thick gray beard covered half his face, and his leather vest weighed heavy on his shoulders. On his back were the colors of the Hells Angels. Men feared him. Men crossed the street when they saw him. That was fine with Hawk. He liked being left alone. He walked into the diner, and the little bell above the door gave a sad ring. The place was empty, except for a waitress behind the counter and the hum of an old air conditioner. The air smelled like coffee and stale pie. He sat at the worn counter and said, "Black coffee." The waitress nodded and poured him a cup. He wrapped his hand around the warm mug and stared into it. He was thinking about things he didn't want to think about. The crash, his brother, the empty years, all the things he had buried deep inside himself a long time ago. Before you continue listening, please let me know where in the world are you watching from today. Now back to the story. Then he looked up. Through the dusty window, he saw a small child sitting on the curb. A girl, she had a skateboard beside her, and two prosthetic legs, disconnected, lying on the ground like forgotten toys. She was staring at her lap, and he watched a single tear roll down her cheek and drop into the dry dust. Hawk wanted to look away. He didn't for some reason. He kept his eyes on that little girl, and his coffee grew cold in his hands. Hawk finished his coffee. He picked up, then sat back down. He picked up again, paid the waitress, and stepped outside. The bell jangled behind him. He lit a cigarette and leaned against the wall, telling himself he was just getting air. But his eyes kept drifting to the girl on the curb. She had dark hair, a little messy, and a bright yellow plaid shirt that was a few sizes too big for her. Her prosthetics lay beside her. One of them was cracked at the knee. The other had a strap hanging loose, frayed and broken. She noticed him watching her and looked up. Her face was brave, but her eyes were wet. She wiped her cheek with her sleeve and said, "Hi." Hawk nodded. He looked away. "Field, you okay, kid?" "No, sir, but I will be." She said it polite and calm, and that got him. That steadiness. He just with the sadness. He had spent a long time avoiding things, hard things, soft things. But this little girl was sitting there, and she was broken, and she wasn't crying. She was just sitting and breathing, holding on with her two hands. Hawk took another drag of his cigarette and put it out on his boot. "Where's your mom?" "Gone, your dad? He's in prison." Hawk felt a twist in his chest. "Then where's your home? I should get you home." She looked at the empty hill behind the diner. It was a long, smooth slope of pavement that led down to an empty lot, full of sun and dirt and swirled weeds. "Sir," she said, her voice very small, "can you do one thing for me?" "Yeah," he said, surprised at how quiet his own voice came out. "What?" She pointed at the hill. "Can you push me? Just once. Just down that hill. I want to feel the wind." Hawk stood there for a long moment. He looked at the girl, and she was so small. She looked at him with those eyes and trusting eyes, and he felt something crack inside him. A wall he had built years ago. "What's your name, kid?" he asked. "Maya," she said. "You ride a skateboard, Maya?" "I try to," she said. Hawk reached down. Slowly, gently, he picked up the skateboard from the ground, the board worn and old. Then he knelt and picked up Maya. She was light. So light. She held on to his shoulders, fat, sticky with sweat and tears, and he carried her to the skateboard, kneeling her down to sit. He worked carefully. He tried to straighten her legs. Something turned. She watched him from her waist down to her little stubs where her feet should be. But she looked him in the eye. "You're not gonna think it's weird?" "No, kid," he said. "I don't think you're weird at all." He made sure she was balanced. The sidewalk was smooth, dipping down Glasshill toward the lot. He put both hands on her shoulders. "You ready?" She nodded. Then she smiled. A real, open, child smile. Hawk pushed. The skateboard started to roll. Slowly at first, then the hill took her. He heard her gasp, and then one small laugh. Then a bigger laugh. It echoed across the desert. The sound appeared, wild and free. She said his voice, "Again? Again? Again?" Hawk began to run, keeping pace beside her. He was not a man who ran anymore. But he was running now, and when she reached the bottom, she was laughing so hard that she can't squeeze. And for the first time in years, in 20 years, Hawk felt a warmth in his chest. A crack had opened. He picked her up again and walked back up the hill. His heart was pounding, and his eyes were too. They sat at a worn table by the window. The waitress, a woman named Betty, saw Maya and gently put a slice of apple pie in front of her. "On the house, sweetie," Betty said. Maya looked at Hawk, who shrugged. He said her mouth was made serious. She broke a piece of crust with the small sticky spoon and ate it like the greatest thing in the world. He watched her for a while. Then he said, "So tell me about your family." Maya used the spoon to wipe the plate. "It's just me and my grandma Rosa," she said. "My mom left when I was little. She didn't want to take care of a girl like me. So it's been just Rosa and me, mostly." Hawk's face was still. "Your dad is in the prison, you said." "He does. But not for being a bad person. He's good, I think. He just has a bad thing." Does that make sense? It did to Hawk. "You got new legs yet?" he asked gently. "Prostheses," Maya nodded. "They gave me the new ones a few months ago. But they don't fit right. They pinch and they break. I snuck out today to practice on the hill because I want to learn to ride, so I can be like the kids. But then I fell, and I guess he went pop." She touched the broken metal lying next to her. Her face was sad. It was the same as she was looking at an old wound. She got up on the prostheses, took a step, and they gave me. I was holding the bus, but I couldn't. Hawk looked down at his own hands. Hands that had broken things. Hands that had done things. He made a decision. "Show me where you live, kid. I'll take you home." Hawk drove his motorcycle very slow. Maya sat in front of him, holding the gas tank, her small body pressed against his leather vest. He had the skateboard strapped to the back. She had been laughing as they pull off, but now she was quiet, tired, feeling the wind. "Are you cold?" he asked. "No," she said. "This is the best thing that ever happened to me." He looked down at her name. He almost spoke. But he didn't. They turned off Route 9 onto a dirt road that was all potholes and loose gravel. A row of trailers stood at the edge of town. Some had broken screens. One had a dead car lying beside it. He turned in at the green trailer, with the porch screen door half hanging off. Before they could stop, a small woman came out. She was elderly, with long silver hair and a brown face wrinkled like elder. She was wearing an apron and moving quickly, calling, "Maya?" "Maya, where they?" She stopped. Hawk helped Maya down of the bike. The smell of coffee and dust and danger must have been. He looked up at Rosa, Maya's grandmother, and the face went white as ash. Her hand flew to her mouth. She took a step back. Her lips trembled. "Hawk?" She whispered more than said. "It's you." The old woman's eyes were wide with shock and recognition. She knew him. He did not know her. And then he knew it was she was not. Maya looked between them. "Grandma? You know him?" Rosa wouldn't speak, but her hands were shaking. Rosa sat in the small living room, in a worn gray armchair with a blanket around her lap. The trailer was old, the walls thin, and there were kind of flowers pressed in the kitchen. Plates full and repaired. Everything looked used and put together by hand. Hawk sat across from her, about to leave. It was a strange old woman who orbited him, but he was fine. He said it was time to go. But her hand quivered out and closed around his arm. It was small. It had a strength. "Wait," she said. "You have to know something." He looked at her. "Know what?" Rosa looked down at Maya, who was taking a bath in the little cradled back hall. The door was closed. She looked back at him. "Your brother," she said. "Danny." Hawk's jaw tightened. "Danny is dead. Died 20 years ago. Crashed." "No," Rosa said. "Not Danny. I'm talking about your older brother." "Lucas." Hawk's mouth opened and closed. "Lucas, yeah, Lucas was my older brother. He died in a wreck too, the same week. They told me it was my fault." Rosa's eyes were wet. "I was a young girl then. I worked at the old 5 and dime. Lucas came in. He wore a leather jacket and someone was his hero. We fell in love. Foolish, was quick. He would ride me in the desert." Hawk listened. He had never known his brother had a girl. "I was young. After he died, I found out I was with child," she said. "A son. I couldn't raise him. I had no money, no family. So I gave him up." "Where's the boy?" Hawk asked. Rosa whispered. "He was adopted. He grew up. He had a child of his own. That's Maya." Hawk sat still for a long time. He looked at Rosa at her story and he felt a strange coiling in his heart. "So then Maya's dad?" he said. "Danny?" "No," she said. "Maya's dad is your grandson, the son who was adopted." Silence ran down a long, twisting path. But then it hit him, and he began to see. "I have a family," he said. "I have a daughter." "I never knew," he said, without thinking. "A nephew," Rosa whispered. "You have a nephew. And she is the girl sleeping in the back room." Hawk sat still. His hands were in his lap. He didn't know what to do with them. He asked, "Can I have a picture? A photo of Lucas. I never thought that he was with you. I never kept enough." Rosa nodded slowly. She pushed herself up from the chair and went to a drawer in the kitchen. She pulled it open, and it stuck. Then, little with papers. She took out a faded black and white photo and brought it to him. It was old, cream-colored with yellow. A young man stood beside a motorcycle. He wore a leather vest, high hair, and a wide smile. And on his forearm there was a long scar shaped like a fork of lightning. Hawk's eyes fixed on the scar. He stared at it. He turned the photo over. "But that should be." "Rosa," he asked, "how did Lucas get this mark?" "Old accident. He rebuilt a fence with a friend. He got it the same year he put me." Hawk's mind spins. Because that same scar. He had seen it just last week on the forearm of a Hells Angels new recruit. A quiet young man named Cole had been the clubhouse, eager and sharp eye burning. But Danny was dead. Danny had the same scar. It wasn't an old bike accident. It was a scar from the two of them were young, from a knife fight in the old yard, and he and Danny both sliced their hand on purpose in a blood oath. He hadn't thought of that in 20 years. Hawk looked up. The world felt drowned. He didn't die in the crash, he said. Danny faked his death. He ran. He's alive. He's Maya's father. Rosa stared. What are you talking about? Hawk looked down again at the photo. Then his voice was gone. Because the man in the photo was not his brother in Lucas. It was Danny, very young, his scar. And in the prison, Maya's father had not died. He was paying for a crime. The truth was breaking around his heart. Hawk left Rosa's trailer without saying another word. He started from it. He rode his motorcycle through the night, the headlight cutting a narrow path through the dark. The desert ring, and everything went the same color. Something inside him was different now. He could taste the difference on his tongue. When he got back to the clubhouse, a low, rambling building at the edge of town, all the lights were on. He walked inside. Men were playing cards, drinking, telling stories made. They hardly looked up when he passed. Hawk didn't want them to. But his eyes found Cole. Cole was sitting on the edge of a table, polishing a knife. He was young. Maybe 26. A sharp face and a broad smile. The same smile that had been in the picture, twisted into a few dimensions of someone greater. Hawk stared at the spider. He didn't say a word. Cole looked up and caught Hawk. He smiled. Hey, old man, you look like you've seen a ghost. Hawk licked his dry lips. Just tired, he said. He walked to his bunk, the one room. He saw a wall and a bunk with a narrow mattress and a threadbare. He lay down, still wearing his boots. He stretched on his back. He tried to count the cracks in the ceiling. There were a lot of years he had taken care of Hoobody. He had hung behind clubs and brothers, but never had he wanted to become a father. Now, the world won't be. He had a nephew in a prison, and he should go to him. He turned on his side and spent a long time looking at old club patches and the worn back and the tired metal bunk. Tomorrow, he would drive to a state penitentiary. He would look for him even if Danny's face came up as stone. That night, he thought, I had a brother. Dead. A prison. And a small girl with no legs. They gave me the wind, and the wind broke me. Hawk was up at dawn. The sky went plum and then hot gold. He put on his vest, checked his bike, and told no one where he was going. The prison was 2 hours away, through flat country and a chain-link fence that wrapped around the world from the road. The fence was gray, deer-parked. The visitor's center was a cold room with a vending machine and a long, fluorescent light. He used an old connections to get in. A favor owed. They gave him a visitor's pass. He sat at a plastic chair. There was a thick partition with a small window. He waited. And waited. And then the man came. Danny was in prison orange. He was gaunt and pale. His hair had gone. He was thin, and his body was filled with walls. He sat down across him. The line of mouth was a hard, tired line. Hawk saw his brother's eyes, that scar on his forearm, the shot, the soul, all the years. Danny looked at him. And then his face twisted. He nearly spat. You were left, Danny said. You're abandoning me to die. Why? Why are you even here? Hawk sat. His throat swelled. His voice is dry. Danny, I didn't know. I didn't know you were alive. You faked them saying, they told me you died. Danny's face shuddered. You knew. They told. You believe you. You let go. He said it with the heartbreak behind it. I know you. You were happy. So you didn't have to trace after the shadow of me anymore. Hawk looked away. No, that's not true. Tell me why you're here again, Danny said. Then the words dropped low. Tell me, what actually happened to bring you? Hawk folded. I met your daughter. Maya. Danny's eyes widened, and then tear ran down his cheek. He bowed his head. Something cracked that instant and went wet and quiet. The silence hung between them like a fog. Danny's shoulders curved, giving him a small hunched man. When he spoke again, his voice was raw. Please, he said after that. Hawk repeated. Soft. She grabbed my heart, he said. She was struggling with her prosthetic to see progress. She said to me, can you push me down a hill so I can feel the wind? And she was laughing, and I heard that, Danny. Her laugh was like we are laughing when we were kids, riding our bikes, with no care in the world. This is how I know, Hawk said. It's true. I saw her photo of you, with the scar, and the new recruit saw the same. I don't die. Did not die. So I came. Danny wiped his face. You came too much this long. I'm here now, Hawk said. Danny was quiet. I was framed, Hawk. His voice was shaking. Silas, the rival gang. He planted right into my truck. There was a robbery at a storage shed that went bad. I wasn't there. I wasn't. He said it to me. And the court believed him. Why you? Hawk asked. Because I knew too much. I gave up the life. I moved down here. I worked at the garage. I was good. But I walked into the wrong face. He knew I was your brother, and he wanted to break you. He didn't sacrifice me to break the club. He got me a break to 20 years. Hawk sat, listening. There's a video, Danny said. He looked around. When Silas planted the evidence, he didn't know the old store had a camera. The footage was captured. I got a copy. I hid it in the old toolbox at the original hideout. The warehouse at the edge of town with the red door. This is the place you and I used to crash on it. Hawk remembered. It's been falling apart for years. No one goes there. It's still sitting in the last drawer of the old toolbox. If you can get it and give it to someone who can do it, they can clear my name. Hawk didn't told anyone. He waited for that midnight until the clubhouse got quiet, and then he left. He rode his motorcycle through the darkness with his lights off until the road turned to gravel, with the old warehouse came up black against the deeper black. 20 years. It had been a long time. The building had bowed wood, broken windows, and a rusted sheet sign that swung in the wind. Sand had drifted against the door. He shoulders the chalked, going into the cold, musty smell of old grease and rust. In the corner, covered in a blanket of dust, sat the old toolbox. It had been the same red. Now pink faded gray. His hand trembled as he pried it open. The hinge screamed. Inside was a small plastic case with a videotape, wrapped in plastic. He wrapped it in an old rag and left it. But when he stepped back outside, there was a flick light of a match. Then a cigarette lit up in the dark. And a voice said, quiet and calm, a smile in it. What are you doing here, old man? Hawk spun. It was Cole. He flexed his hand around the tape body, the heart of his own throat thumping. Looking for Remember, he said. Used to come here with my brother years ago. This is where I learned the ride. Did some time there. Cole smiled. It didn't do a light. Imagine you, getting sentimental. Everything, sometimes you in the past, Hawk said. You wouldn't get it. Cole's eyes dropped to the toolboxes, then back to Hawk. He tilted his head. Right, he said. Well, don't stay too long. The old walls might have opened. He backed up, took a drag, and walked away. Hawk stood in the cold darkness, holding the tape in his hands, waiting for his heart to slow. He knew it was being watched. Hawk drove back to the city, his mind a storm. Every few minutes, he looked in the rearview mirror. He didn't see headlights, but he could feel them. The tape gold in his hand. The only one. He went to a small apartment building, the same one he'd used when he was a different man. He climbed up a narrow stair in his boot. He hid the tool of his tape in a false panel in the kitchen. It was dusty. It was safe. The next day, he went to Maya's trailer. Rosa greeted him at the door with a cautious smile. But her energy. I'm changing him. She has been talking about you all day. It's been very long since he made someone fall in love with the world. Hawk had bought a kite. When you small paper one, hand-painted in orange and green. He and Maya went to the field. He took her in his arms some and carried her across the field, sitting in the heart of it. He taught her to pull the line, and she felt the wind out. And she ran, not with the feet, but with her whole soul. The kite fluttered. Then it flew. He watched her laugh and called, "Hawk, Mama. Look, I'm flying." He let the kite pull. And he saw the same smile that had showed up on the hill. For a few minutes, the world was herself. No jail, no brother, no gang. Just a small girl with the sky in her hands. He put a hand on his chest. His heart was a warm, hurting A-month flu. The desert days were short, and the nights were cold. Hawk became a regular presence in the trailer. He brought groceries. He fixed the screen door. He replaced the rotten steps. He gave Rosa a ride to the doctor. He read Maya bedtime stories with the dramatic voice of his quiet, low rumble, making the worms come alive. He also taught her to ride the little electric city bike. He'd bought it used, cheap, with his own money. He modified the base so she could sit without the prosthetic and steer with her hands. She was at first, then she was speed. Faster, Hawk. She cried. Faster. He would run along behind her in the firehouse, a biker learning to keep up with a little laugh on wheels. In the afternoons, they'd sit on the porch step and share a cactus lemonade. He'd talk, not too much. She'd talk, endlessly, about school, about the colors she loved, about the stars. One night she was sitting beside him on the stoop while the sky turned purple. She looked up at him. Then she said, her voice small and honest, "Hawk, I wish you were my dad." His throat sealed shut with thick. He looked at the sky. "I mean, I have a dad," she said. "He's in the prison. He says he didn't do it. I believe him. But you're here. You're real." Hawk bent down and held her in his arms, careful. Her thin little body warmed him. "I'm gonna get him home," he said. His voice was hoarse. "I'm going to. That's my promise to you." She hugged him in the near dark. He felt her go steady while. And he felt something in his place where he hadn't had in a long time, a father. The night, and saw heat. Hawk sat in the clubhouse, staring at the cards and ignoring them. When the sirens whined across the town parking lot, growing up to the mountains. Then he noticed it was a reflection in the distance, orange. Something big is burning. A phone ring. Someone yelled, "Old warehouse on the valley going up again." Hawk's gun. He thought of his motorcycle and road, a trail of dust. But when he got to the old hideout, it was already swallowed. The roof was caved in. The flames were bright and roaring, crackling through old woods. He stood in the heat, and he knew. The toolbox was in the middle of it. All the tape. The evidence. The whole of his hope. He stood there shaking, the heat washing over him of the night. Then his phone buzzed. A voice he didn't last. A saying, "The old piece is done. You can find no one." The answer was like Watts. Hawk ran. He drove to Rosa's trailer like a man on fire. He hit the door open, and he stopped at Rosa on the floor. Ash, hands, eyes, she had fallen and she was not moving. Maya, screaming on the phone. He ran in. He gently took the phone and called for the ambulance, his own arm shaking, while Rosa's hand was cold. The rest of the night was a blur of hall, fluorescent lights, and the small girl holding his hand in a waiting room that smelled like cleaner and white. He held on too. His hand filled hers. The hospital was bright and despair. Rosa lay in a narrow bed with tubes. The nurse said she had a stroke. She's alive. But she's fragile now. She will be weak. A week passed in the waiting room, in the chair. Maya still in his lap. He wore the same vest. The Hells Angels had been the only family. They found him. It was a quiet fall. A group of brothers came to the hospital to meet him. They were heavy jeans, boots, and cut. They stood in the corridor, hooded and still. Hawk stepped out. "You, what did you do?" The older man, Poker, went behind the club to an old hideout. "Cut this off." "I had to," Hawk said. "Had to. You went to the past. You put us in danger. That you'd take with a rival. And now you're not answering." Hawk looked at the pin. It held the honor. They pulled the colors from his back. He stood there in his black t-shirt, and they stripped him in the middle of the hall. "You're out," the president said. "As of now. You're no brother." They turned and left. Hawk stood alone in the light. He looked at his hand and the white wall. In his ears, he heard the machine beeping in the room behind him. He felt not only the vest. A lifetime older broken titanium sold, Hawk was a ghost. He slept in a motel, then a car. Then a tiny studio. He found an apartment, 1 room, 2 windows, a bed, a heater that toiled. He was not a member of a club. He had no people, no name, just a broken angel. He did odd jobs. He grinded the yard. He worked at a gas station. He helped a local mechanic, and the man said, "You have a dry good hand for it." He was a good mechanic. He visited Maya every day. She was staying with a neighbor while Rosa in rehab. This is a long, sad recovery. On a cold afternoon, he sat with her on a porch in the afternoon. He was quiet. The dark was creeping over his face. She looked into her eyes. "You still have me," she whispered. He looked up, and his watering eyes found hers. He couldn't speak, but he held her hand. He was a dead man's heart, and she was turning the key. A few days later, he called the public defender. They called back. Danny's case was dismissed. He was being transferred out of state. A maximum security. Visits impossible. No proof, no hope, no path. Hawk sat in his blue room. He thought about the helm, the wind in his face. Laughed that girl. He decided he couldn't give up. 2 weeks later. Hawk was now a mechanic at a local garage. It was honest, and he was good. He got his paycheck and paid his rent. He still wore a leather jacket, but no cut. Whatever, he spent his nights researching. He tried to adopt Maya. He legal writing, a lawyer, the court case. He sat in the room and presented his case. A housing, a job, a history. He had. But he didn't. Place, they denied. "Your criminal record," says the official over the phone. "You can't, sir," he said, "your record bars of the foster system. We cannot place a child with someone in that background no matter—" "I'm sorry." Hawk couldn't. And now it was dead. Then, a morning, his phone. It was the rehab where Rosa was. It was something for the old recovery. Rosa was walking in a few steps alone. She asked to see him. He went. She was in a chair, already old, a robe, her hand folded. She looked at it. "They did not hear you," she said. "No, they each didn't." But she reached into a little bag with a shaking hand. She pulled out a faded envelope. "This is from Danny. From before printed. I'd forgotten it. He wrote to me that if something ever happened to Clear, he needed to be found." She put it into his hand. In the envelope there was an old letter. And there was also something flat. In a folded sleeve. "No one ever saw that," she said. "Here," Hawk held it. "Rosa, is this what I think it is?" Her voice was a whisper. "I never saw. I never knew what someone was in. But you have." Now, that night it was nothing. Hawk sat in his apartment. The tape was in a plastic sleeve and one, old and dusty. In his hands, he had the weight of it, a cold, a hard. It could save. It could tear down a gang. He went to an old thrift store and borrowed a VCR from the back. The man said, "This is old, weird, and Draco at his own apartment." He hooked all the cords. The tape went in with a click, a long buzzing. The screen flickered with static. Then, an image appeared. It was the interior of the old gas station. Unclear, but clear enough. A man in a jacket. His face was turned. He remergiates. He saw a backpack behind the counter. Then he crouched, pulled out his gun, planted it inside. The timestamp, the second edge. The camera moved. It caught the man's face to full profile. It was Silas. It was unmistakable in the room. The cold eyes. He planted the weapon. He looked around. He slipped out. Hawk watched, and watched it again. A third time. He looked at the screen. The video was the answer. It was all the whole world. It was there. "I need to find the right people," he said to quiet. He looked at the clunky VCR. He took out the tape and held it against his chest. The small, messy office in the town had a poster, plants dying, and a girl in a blazer. Her name was Sarah Stone, public defender, worked 3 jobs. She had a family the size of the own, a stack of files, and she did not act. Hawk walked in. He stood in the doorway, a man in jeans in a leather jacket. "I have something you need to see," she said. She tried to let the door. "I haven't had a free moment in." "Then use a moment." He set a VCR. He had the player on the floor. He set it, then the tape. He said, "You have to watch this. Just a minute." Sarah looked at him with surprise, practical, but there was something about his eyes. He didn't know. He set the tape. He placed it in. The footage played. Sarah sat in her chair. She was completely silent. When it was over, she looked from the screen to the face. "What year was this?" he told her. He told her everything. The framed brother. The gang. The arson. The child. His gone. Sarah saw it a long moment. Then she nodded. Somehow she had a dry voice in his eyes. "I'm taking your case. Pro bono." She filed a motion to reopen it, and for a moment the clouds opened. But that afternoon, when Hawk got home, he found his door open. The man watching. The apartment had been gone, and a message was written on the wall. It said, "House gone." Next the girl. Silas. Hawk felt cold as ice. He knew exactly what. He packed, fast. He called Sarah. She wasn't, but she came home. They had a copy at the law office, which was safe. But was that primary? The target was him. Maya had a school the next day. Silas's men would look for him, would look for the tape. He knew where Maya would be, and maybe they would find her, because she was the easiest one. He had to use the on the safe. In the morning, he packed the original tape at the bottom of a backpack. He drove to school. He found Maya under the tree. First, he opened his bag. "Maya," he whispered. "I have to be honest with you. You always are," she said. "Good. There's something inside this backpack. It's very small, but it's more valuable than you can understand. I need you to keep it on you, and not let anyone touch it. I'm going to take someone to see thee." Mayu looked at him seriously. She put her hand on his. "I take good care of it." She took the backpack. That afternoon, he was at his apartment moving things. He heard the footsteps in the hall. The lock made a clank, and the door burst open. Silas and two men. They found him. There was no need for speech. They grappled. The big men. Hawk took a punch to the ribs, and something went. He could hear the crack, and his vision turned white. He saw one of them pulls up, but he shoved forward and took the other to the floor and smashing the lamp, a boot. The man's leg. He had. Then the sirens came. 2 doors down, the neighbor called. The blue and red light through the window restored the hall, then a shouted, his Silas on the floor. Hawk crawled and lay. He saved the case. He lay, gasping, holding his side, seeing the policeman dragged him in. He looked at his broken lantern. All the pain. And it was worth. It took him a month to heal a rib. He had a good surgeon. It was fast. The legal machine moved. The tape played. Silas and his men were arrested, charged with the robbery, the frame-up, and a string of other misdeeds they could now prove. Sarah was a hero. She stood in the court and was so proud. Danny, the state prison came, and he was exonerated. All through those days, he served out of that. But he got the word. And when the gate opened, he stepped out in the free afternoon light. Hawk was standing beside his motorcycle, and they both didn't have a helmet. There was red in the paving. Danny walked up. He stopped up. He wondered if his eyes would be hard. But he broke open. He grabbed Hawk. Hawk hugged his brother for years. Tears streamed his thick beard, the man's face. They stood there, both shaking, mothers and their scarred. "You did it," Danny whispered. "You gave me my life." "You gave a kid," Hawk said. Then they got on the bike. They drove any hospital of town, and it was then. They drove to the trailer. Rosa was on the porch in the sun. A blanket. Stronger now. Maya barefoot. Maya they worked. Maya looked at her dad in the doorway. "A man with scars, older, lean, wider, Dad?" she said. And Danny went his knees. He opened, and she fell into his arms, and holding his daughter and shaking, whole body, and the sky was bright enough for the whole world. The family. A week later, a car. The late day, the door. There was a knock. He opened it. Men in leather. The president was a man. The other members, their bikes parked in an orderly row in the hot sun. "At ease, man," the president says. "We need you." They led him to a club. The chairs were in the circle, an old room with a table. They made him a place. The vote was close. "But you know it be." A clerk counted. 8-4, 2 against. Motion carried. "But we've been discussing you. You put the club at risk, then you gave a brother's life. You stayed a brother in your heart. You were taken from us. But we don't want to be a cow. We vote to bring you," the president said. "Not a member. We don't want you in the way." Somebody said, A brother of the heart. That's what the label says. We are due to the dead. You are a heart. The room was silent. They set on the table a clean, unprocured cut, with a patch. It read, Heart. Hawk looked at. It glowed under the light. He stood, his heart very in his chest. He shook his head. No, he said, I can't. Said why? Said because I'm not the man that is. You are the people. But my family, I show myself. He pointed to the door. The top, he pointed at the porch, with the bright. He says my family is here now, and no one, not one member in the room argued that home. The club kept its promise anyway. That was the club's way. To protect the family, no matter. In the name of Lucas Alexander Walker, his old brother, they set a Maleta. It was so small official. A children's writers' fund. It raised money for the children of the community. It told the story of a brother who had been taken too soon and who taught them what the wind is. It reimbursed Maya's custom-fitted prosthetics. A morning in the clinic, they fit the new legs. They designed the sockets to the customer to be special. She stood. She took a step. Silently, in a bar. Then another step. She put her weight, no pain at all. Then Maya called, Look like. Look. Rosa clapped, tears streaming down her face. Danny, his hands in the air, thigh watch, Hawk in the background, his eyes wet, he opened them. She walked toward him. She walked without pain. Hawk may have been a man who had no family. No, he didn't know his. Maya reached out and held his hand. Let's go, she said. Let's go get some pie. And they walked together out of doors, Rosa and Danny behind, matching the small family with his own. It was evening, the desert at the top of the sky. A storm had passed and left the air cool and clean. They drove in the old road, the three of them in two bikes, Hawk and Maya, Danny on the bike beside. The tannery was rusted and waving. At the bottom, the long slope at the back of the diner. The sun was a great orange ball sinking close against the land, and the whole place was the same golden color as it was the day she saw that. Hawk parked his bike at the top of the hill. He turned off the engine. He turned to the show. No, she said, wearing her new legs. She smiled. I get to sit on the seat for a second. Like this. On the saddle. That was the plan. Hawk smiled. It wasn't a sad day. He set her on the seat. She had small, light, adjusted. She gripped his hands, held her. He revved the engine, and it rumbled in the desert. Danny pulled up beside them. He smiled and laughed to the sound. Hawk looked down at Maya and calmed. Her eyes, of that little girl who had said, "Can you do me one thing?" He said, "You asked me to do one thing for you. You give me a lifetime." He shifted up, and they slow, steady down the hill. The wind caught her hair, and she leaned back and laughed without a trace of fear, a bright laugh that the empty bowls remembered. The sun sank in the desert. The two brothers, the two motorcycles, and in between, a dyed girl, moving forward at last, with her whole life ahead. They were a family, and maybe no one got to be one by blood. They got to be one by heart. But they were one all the same. And the wind kept blowing. And it twisted again. Hawk finished his coffee. He set the mug down with a soft clink and slid off the stool. The waitress gave him a small nod. He paid at the counter and walked toward the door. The little bell rang out as he stepped into the heat. He lit a cigarette and leaned against the diner wall. The sun pressed down on him, but he didn't mind. He told himself he was just getting some air. He told himself he would leave in a minute. But his eyes kept drifting to the girl. She sat on the curb, her back to the diner. Her dark hair fell across her face. Her shoulders were small and still. The skateboard lay beside her, old and worn, and her prosthetic legs lay in the dust like two broken toys. Hawk took a long drag. He watched the smoke curl up into the white sky. The girl turned. She looked at him with big brown eyes. Her face was smudged with dirt and dried tears. But there was something else there. Something steady. Something that made him feel small. "Hi," she said. Hawk nodded. He took another drag. "You okay, kid?" "No, sir. But I will be." That got him. That steadiness. She was sitting there broken, and she wasn't crying. She was just breathing. Hawk put out his cigarette on his boot. He walked over and stood in front of her. Up close, she looked even smaller, maybe 8 or 9. Her clothes were clean but faded. Her shoes were missing because she didn't have feet to put them on. "Where's your mom?" he asked. "Gone. Your dad? He's in prison." Hawk felt a twist in his chest. He squatted down so he was level with her. The gravel crunched under his boots. "Then where's your home? I should get you back." She looked past him. Her eyes settled on the empty hill behind the diner. It was a long slope of pavement, smooth and sun-bleached. At the bottom, the land opened into a wide lot of dirt and dry grass. "Sir," she said. Her voice was small, almost a whisper. "Can you do one thing for me?" "Yeah," Hawk said. His own voice came out quieter than he expected. "What?" She pointed at the hill. "Can you push me? Just once. Just down that hill. I want to feel the wind." Hawk blinked. He looked at the hill, then at her legs lying in the dust, then at her face. "That's what you want?" "Yes, sir. I've been practicing with my skateboard for months. But my legs, they keep breaking. They don't fit right. And I just want to feel the wind on my face. Just one time. Like I'm flying." Hawk was quiet. He had spent years building walls. Thick ones, high ones. He had learned to keep people out. But this little girl had found a crack. "What's your name, kid?" "Maya. You ride a skateboard, Maya?" "I try to. I fell today. That's why my legs broke." Hawk looked at the prosthetics. One was cracked at the knee. The other had a strap hanging loose and frayed. They looked old. Too small. Like they had been pieced together and patched more than once. He reached down. Slowly, gently, he picked up the skateboard. The wood was worn smooth from use. The wheels were scratched but solid. Then he knelt down in front of her. "Okay," he said. "Let's do it." Maya's eyes went wide. "Really?" "Really." Hawk picked her up. She was light. So light. She held on to his shoulders with her small hands. She smelled like soap and dust. He carried her to the skateboard and set her down on it. She balanced herself with her hands. Her legs kept bent where the stubs ended. "You good?" he asked. "Yes, sir, I'm good." Hawk crouched low and put both hands on her shoulders. He looked down the hill. It was long. It was smooth. It would be fast. "Hold on tight," he said. Maya nodded. She gripped the edges of the board. Hawk pushed. The skateboard rolled forward, slow at first. Then the hill caught it. Maya gasped. Her hair flew back. And then she laughed. A small laugh. Then a big one. It rang across the desert like a bell. "Whew!" she shouted. "I'm flying." Hawk ran. He was a big man, a man who hadn't run in years. But he ran now. He kept pace beside her, his boots pounding the pavement. The sun burned down. The wind rushed past. Maya laughed and laughed, her arms stretched out, Her face lifted to the sky. At the bottom, the skateboard slowed. Maya wobbled. Hawk caught her before she could tip. He scooped her up and held her against his chest. She was breathing hard. Her cheeks were pink. Her eyes were bright. "Again?" she said. "Can we go again?" Hawk looked at her. The walls around his heart had cracked. He could feel the dust falling away. "Yeah, kid, we can go again." But before they turned back toward the hill, Maya looked up at him. Her smile softened. Her voice dropped to something serious. "Sir," she said, "can you do one thing for me?" Hawk frowned. "Didn't we just know?" she said. "Not the skateboard. I mean, something else." She pointed past the diner. "Past the empty hill. Take me home. Please, my grandma will be worried." Hawk looked where she pointed. The road stretched out toward a cluster of old trailers at the edge of town. "Yeah," he said. "I can do that." Maya smiled. She leaned her head against his shoulder. Hawk carried her back up the hill, and something inside him shifted. Something old and cold began to thaw. Hawk looked down at the girl in his arms. Her eyes were bright. Her smile was wide. The words hung in the dry air between them. "Again?" she said. "Please, just one more." Hawk should have said no. He had places to be. The club was waiting. But the word caught in his throat. He looked at the hill, long and smooth. The sun was high now. The pavement shimmered. He looked back at Maya. She was holding on to his leather vest. Her small fingers curled into the worn leather. "You sure, kid? That was fast." "That's the point," she said. "The faster, the better." Hawk let out a low breath. It almost sounded like a laugh. He turned and carried her back up the hill. His boots crunched on the gravel. His shadow stretched long across the pavement. At the top, he set her down gently on the skateboard. She balanced herself with her hands. Her legs, where the stubs ended, rested on the board. "Ready?" "Yes, sir." Hawk looked at the hill again. Then he did something he hadn't done in a long time. He knelt down in front of her. He took off his leather vest and folded it. He placed it soft behind her back, giving her something to lean on. "That'll help," he said. "Keep you steady." Maya touched the vest. "This is yours." "Yeah, it's mine. You're giving it to me?" "Just for the ride, kid," she smiled. "Thank you, sir." Hawk stood. He moved behind her. He placed his hands on her shoulders. She was so small, so light. He could feel her trembling, not from fear, from excitement. "Hold on tight," he said. "I will. But I mean really tight. This hill is faster than it looks." Maya giggled. She gripped the edges of the skateboard. Her knuckles went white. Hawk took a breath. Then he pushed. The skateboard rolled forward. Slow at first. The wheels ticked over the pavement. Maya let out a small gasp. Then the hill caught her. The board picked up speed. Faster, faster, the wind whipped her hair around her face. Her arms stretched out like wings. "Whew!" She shouted. "Yes. Yes." Hawk ran. He was a big man, a heavy man. But he ran. His boots slapped against the pavement. He kept pace beside her. The sun burned down. Sweat beaded on his forehead. But he didn't stop. Maya's laugh rang out. It cut across the desert. It bounced off the rocks and the dry earth. It was pure and bright. It filled the space around them like a sound he had never heard before. And then he felt it. Something inside him cracked. Not his bones, not his body. Something deeper. Something he had buried years ago. A wall. A heavy wall he had built brick by brick after his brother died, after he had failed the only person who ever mattered. The crack spread. It was like ice breaking on a frozen river, slow at first, then all at once. A warmth flooded through his chest. He was still running, still keeping pace, but his eyes stung. He blinked. The skateboard slowed as it reached the bottom. Maya wobbled. Hawk reached out and caught her. He scooped her up in his arms. She was breathing hard. Her cheeks were pink. Her eyes were dancing. "That was amazing," she said. "That was the best thing ever." Hawk held her. He didn't say anything. He couldn't. His voice was caught in his throat. Maya looked at him. Her smile softened. She reached up and touched his cheek. "You're crying," she said. Hawk shook his head. "No, it's the heat." But she didn't believe him. She just leaned her head against his chest. "Thank you," she whispered. "For the wind. For everything." Hawk held her tighter. The crack inside him opened wider, and for the first time in 20 years, he felt something other than cold. He felt hope. Hawk carried Maya through the diner door. The little bell above it jingled. The cool air hit his face. It felt good after the heat. The waitress looked up from the counter. Her name was Dottie. Her gray hair was piled on top of her head. She had worked at this diner for 30 years. She had seen everything. "Good Lord," Dottie said. "Did you just push that child down the hill?" "Yes, ma'am," Maya said. Her voice was bright. "And it was the best thing in the whole world." Dottie shook her head. But she was smiling. "You two sit down. I'll bring you something cold." Hawk carried Maya to a worn table by the window. The red vinyl seats were cracked. The table had scratches and old coffee stains. But it was clean. It felt like home. Or at least what he imagined home felt like. He set Maya down on the bench. She was still holding his leather vest. She placed it on the table like it was something precious. "You want this back?" she asked. Hawk looked at the vest. His patch. His colors. His whole identity. He had never let anyone else touch it. Not once. "You keep it for now," he said. "You earned it." Maya beamed. Dottie came over with 2 glasses of water. Then she looked at Maya and frowned. "Where are your legs, sweetheart?" Maya pointed to the prosthetics on the floor by the door. "They broke. But it's okay. I got the ride anyway." Dottie's face softened. She looked at Hawk. There was something new in her eyes. "Respect. I'll get you some pie. Apple, on the house." "You don't have to do that," Hawk said. "Didn't ask," Dottie said. She walked off. Maya giggled. "She's funny. She's something," Hawk said. He sat down across from her. He took off his sunglasses and set them on the table. He looked at the girl in front of him. She was small. Her hair was messy from the wind. Her cheeks were still pink. She looked happy. "So, kid," he said. "You live around here?" Maya nodded. "About 10 minutes that way." She pointed her thumb toward the desert. "With your folks?" Maya's smile faded. "Just a little." She looked down at the table. "My mom left," she said, "a while ago. I don't know where she went." Hawk felt something tighten in his chest. He stayed quiet. "And my dad is in prison." The words landed like stones. She said them plainly. No tears, no drama, just the truth. Hawk leaned back. He had spent his life around people who broke the law. He had seen families torn apart by it. But this little girl, she didn't deserve any of it. "How long?" he asked. "A long time," Maya said. "I never really knew him. He got locked up when I was a baby. Do you write to him?" Maya shook her head. "He doesn't answer. I think he's too sad." Hawk didn't know what to say. He was a man of few words. He had never been good at talking, especially about things like this. "Who takes care of you?" he asked. "My grandma," Maya said. Her voice brightened a little. Rosa, she's the best. She makes the best tortillas, and she sings to me at night. Old songs from Mexico. That sounds nice. It is, but she works a lot. She cleans houses. So I have to be careful. I can't get into trouble. Hawk looked at her broken prosthetics. He could see how worn they were. The metal was bent. The straps were frayed. You said those are new? Maya nodded. My grandma saved up for a long time. She got them for my birthday. But I've been practicing with them. And practicing means falling. She smiled. But there was something sad behind it. They keep breaking. I'm too rough on them, I guess. Grandma gets upset because we can't afford to fix them. She doesn't say it. But I know. Hawk looked at the girl. At her thin shoulders. At the way she held herself like she was carrying something heavy. You snuck out today, he said. Didn't you? Maya's eyes went wide. How did you know? Because your grandma wouldn't let you ride a skateboard down a hill with broken legs. Maya bit her lip. She looked guilty. I just wanted to feel the wind, she said. One time. Just once. I wanted to feel like I could fly. Dottie arrived with a plate of pie. A huge slice, steam rising from the golden crust. She set it down in front of Maya. There you go, sweetheart. Maya's eyes went wide. Wow, thank you, ma'am. Dottie ruffled her hair and walked away. Maya picked up her fork. She took a big bite. Her eyes closed. She let out a happy sigh. This is the best pie in the world, she said. Hawk watched her. The cracks in his chest opened wider. He didn't understand it. This little girl. This stranger with no legs and a broken skateboard. She was getting to him, in a way nothing had gotten to him in years. Eat up, kid, he said softly. You earned it. Hawk pushed his plate away. He hadn't touched his pie. He didn't have much of an appetite. Not with Maya looking at him like he was some kind of hero. All right, kid, he said. Finish up. I'll take you home. Maya's fork froze halfway to her mouth. She stared at him. You mean, on your motorcycle? If you want. Maya dropped her fork. It clattered on the plate. Yes, I want. Her voice was so loud that Dottie looked over from the counter and laughed. Hold your horses, sweetheart, Dottie called. You'll wake the dead. Maya giggled. She tried to wipe her mouth with her napkin, but she was too excited. She smeared pie crumbs across her cheek instead. Hawk stood up. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a few crumpled bills. He set them on the table. Dottie had said the pie was on the house, but that didn't feel right. Not for this. He walked over to the door and picked up Maya's prosthetics. They were light. Too light. They looked like they had been patched together more times than he could count. He carried them under his arm like they were made of glass. Maya had said he could keep his vest. But he couldn't ride with it on the bike and hold her at the same time. He slipped it on and then picked her up. Her small body fit against his chest like she belonged there. Ready? He asked. Ready. She said. He carried her outside. The heat hit them again. The desert sun was high and white. It made everything shimmer. His motorcycle sat in the parking lot. A big black machine, old and loud and full of scars. It had taken him across the country more times than he could remember. But this ride felt different. It felt important. He swung his leg over the seat and settled in. Then he lifted Maya and set her in front of him, between his arms and the gas tank. It was safer that way. She was so small she fit easily. Hold on to me, he said. Maya grabbed the handlebars. Then she shook her head and let go. Instead, she wrapped her arms around his chest. She pressed her face against his vest. Okay, she said. Her voice was muffled. "I'm ready." Hawk started the engine. It roared to life. The whole bike shook underneath them. Maya gasped. "It's so loud." "You get used to it." "Is it scary?" "Only if you don't respect it." Maya squeezed him tighter. He could feel her little fingers digging into his vest. She was scared. But she was brave too. He could tell. He pulled out of the parking lot slowly. He had never ridden this slow in his life. He usually flew down these roads like the devil was chasing him. But not today. Today he had precious cargo. The wind whipped past them. Maya's hair flew everywhere. She let out a laugh. It was a bright, joyful sound. It cut through the noise of the engine like a bell. "This is amazing," she yelled. Hawk smiled. He didn't even realize he was smiling until he felt his cheeks pull. He couldn't remember the last time he smiled. It felt strange, but it also felt good. He followed her directions. She pointed down a long gravel road that led away from the main highway. The pavement turned to dirt. The dirt turned to ruts. The bike bounced over rocks and potholes. "Sorry," Maya shouted. "It's bumpy." "Don't worry about it," he shouted back. They passed old trailers and broken fences. They passed a rusted truck with no wheels. They passed a yard full of junk and an old dog that barked at them as they went by. Finally, Maya pointed to a small trailer at the end of the road. It sat alone on a patch of dry, cracked dirt. The metal walls were faded and dented. The windows were covered with old blankets instead of curtains. A clothesline hung out back with a few shirts flapping in the wind. "That's my house," Maya said. Her voice was proud. Hawk cut the engine. The sudden silence was loud. He sat there for a moment, looking at the trailer. It was the kind of place he had seen 1,000 times before. He had passed by places like this and never thought twice. But now, it was different. Now, it was hers. The door of the trailer opened. An elderly woman stepped out. She was small and thin, with gray hair pulled back in a bun. She wore a faded blue dress and an apron. She was holding a wooden spoon in one hand. She had probably been cooking. She squinted at the motorcycle. Her face was wary. Her shoulders were tense. She took a step forward, ready to protect her granddaughter from whatever was coming. Then, she saw him. Her face went pale. All the color drained from her cheeks. The wooden spoon slipped from her fingers and clattered on the metal step. Her eyes went wide. Her lips parted. She took a step back, and then another. Hawk got off the bike. He lifted Maya off gently and set her on the ground. She wobbled without her prosthetics, so he held her firmly under the arms. "Look, Grandma," Maya called. "I got a ride on a motorcycle." But Rosa didn't look at Maya. She didn't look at the motorcycle. She looked only at Hawk. Her whole body was trembling. She opened her mouth. Her voice came out as a whisper, barely audible over the desert wind. "Hawk? It's you." Hawk shifted his weight toward the door. He had done what he came to do. He had brought Maya home safe. That was enough. He didn't need to stay. He never stayed. "Thank you for the ride," Rosa said. Her voice was still shaky. "I can take her from here." Hawk nodded. He set Maya's prosthetics down by the door and turned to leave, but Rosa's hand shot out. Her thin fingers wrapped around his wrist. Her grip was surprisingly strong for a woman her size. "Wait," she said. "Please wait." Hawk stopped. He looked down at her hand. Then he looked at her face. Her eyes were wet. She was staring at him like she had seen a ghost. "Please," she said again, "come inside, just for a moment." Maya tugged on his vest. "Please, sir, we have lemonade. Grandma makes it fresh." Hawk stood there for a long moment. The desert sun beat down on his back. His bike sat waiting, engine still ticking as it cooled. Every instinct told him to leave. This wasn't his world. This wasn't his business. But something in Rosa's eyes stopped him. He followed her inside. The trailer was small, cramped, every inch of space was used. There was a worn brown couch with a blanket draped over it, a small kitchen with yellowed cabinets, a table with 2 chairs, pictures on the wall. Most of them were of Maya. Rosa gestured to the couch. "Sit, please." Hawk sat. The couch creaked under his weight. He felt too big for this room. Too rough. His leather vest and boots seemed out of place among the lace doilies and dried flowers. Rosa sat across from him in an old rocking chair. She folded her hands in her lap. They were shaking. Maya hopped over to the kitchen and climbed onto a stool. She was watching them with wide eyes. She didn't understand what was happening. But she knew something was different. "Grandma," Maya said, "why are you crying?" Rosa reached up and touched her cheek. She hadn't realized she was crying. A tear had slipped down her face. "I'm okay, mija," she said. "I'm just surprised, that's all." Hawk shifted in his seat. He didn't like this. He didn't like the way Rosa was looking at him, like she knew him, like she had been waiting for him. "You called me by name," he said. "I don't know you." Rosa nodded slowly. "You don't know me. But I knew you. I knew your family." Hawk's jaw tightened. "I don't have family." Rosa smiled. It was a sad smile. Everyone has family, even if they don't know it. She stood up. She walked over to a small shelf in the corner. She reached behind a stack of old books and pulled out a photograph. It was faded. The edges were curled and yellow. She brought it to him. Her hands were trembling as she held it out. Hawk took it. He looked down at the picture. It was an old photo, the kind taken at a fairground booth. It showed a young man and a young woman. They were standing close together, smiling. The man had his arm around her shoulder. The man was wearing a leather vest. He had dark hair and a cocky smile. He looked familiar. So familiar it made Hawk's chest hurt. Hawk's fingers tightened on the photo. His throat went dry. That's Danny," he said. The words came out rough. His voice cracked on his brother's name. Danny, his older brother. The one who died in that crash 20 years ago. The crash Hawk always blamed himself for. "No," Rosa said softly. "That's not Danny. That's his older brother. Your brother." Hawk looked up at her. His mind was spinning. He stared at the picture again. The man had Danny's smile, Danny's eyes. But he was older, filled out more. "My brother died," Hawk said, 20 years ago. He died in a crash." Rosa shook her head. She sat down across from him again. She looked so small and tired. "No," she said. "He didn't die in that crash. He survived. He left the club. He left everything. He came to find me." Hawk's head was pounding. "Wait, you knew my brother? My oldest brother?" Rosa nodded. "His name was Raymond. But everyone called him Ray." She paused. "He was my first love." Hawk sat in silence. The photo trembled in his hand. Ray, his big brother Ray. The one who taught him how to ride. The one who always protected him. The one he watched die in a fiery crash on a desert highway. Except he didn't die. He came to me about a year after the crash, Rosa said. He was scared. He said he had to disappear. He said the club was in trouble. He faked his death to protect everyone. Hawk's chest felt tight. His hand moved to his vest. He pulled at the collar. But that's not all, Rosa said. Hawk looked at her. Her eyes were full of pain and regret. Ray and I, we were young. We were in love. And I got pregnant. She swallowed hard. I gave birth to a son. But I was poor. I couldn't raise a baby. I gave him up for adoption. Hawk's whole body went still. He stopped breathing. You had his baby, he said. You gave him away. Rosa nodded. Tears streamed down her face. I didn't have a choice. I was 16. I had nothing. His family didn't want me. My family couldn't help. The nuns at the church took my baby. They found him a good home. Hawk looked down at the photo again, at his brother's smile, at the girl beside him, this girl, this woman. You have a nephew, Rosa whispered, somewhere out there, a son of Ray's, a boy you never knew. The words hung in the air like dust in the desert sun. Hawk sat in silence. A million thoughts raced through his head. His brother was alive. He had a son, somewhere out there, a nephew he had never met. He looked at Rosa. His eyes were wet. Who is he? He asked. Who is the boy? Rosa stood slowly. Her knees popped as she moved. She walked to a small dresser in the corner of the room. The wood was scratched and worn. She pulled open the bottom drawer. It stuck at first. She tugged harder. Hawk watched her. His heart was pounding in his chest. He could feel his own pulse in his fingertips. He still held the old fairground photo in his hand. His brother's smile stared up at him. Rosa reached deep into the drawer. She moved aside old scarves and tangled yarn. Finally, she pulled out a small box. It was made of tin. Rust covered the corners. She brought it back to the couch and sat down. This was all I had left of him, she said. I kept it hidden all these years. She opened the tin box. Inside was a folded piece of paper, a dried flower, a silver ring, and another photograph. This one was smaller, more worn. She handed it to Hawk. The photograph was creased down the middle. The edges were frayed. But the image was clear enough. It showed a man standing beside a motorcycle. The same motorcycle Hawk remembered from his childhood. The man was tall, broad-shouldered. He had a thick beard and dark eyes. He wore the club vest. The Hells Angels patch was visible on the back. But what made Hawk's breath catch was the man's arms. The man was resting his forearms on the handlebars. His sleeves were rolled up. And on his left forearm, just below the elbow, there was a scar. A long, jagged scar. It ran from his wrist to his elbow. It looked like a knife wound that had healed badly. Hawk's eyes locked on that scar. His mind flashed back to a week ago. A new recruit had come into the clubhouse. Young kid, maybe 25, eager to prove himself. The kid had a scar on his forearm. Same exact scar, same jagged line, same placement. Hawk had asked him about it. The kid said it was from a motorcycle accident when he was a teenager. Hawk had believed him. Now he stared at the photo. His hands were shaking. His chest felt like it was caving in. That's not Ray, he whispered. Rosa looked at him. Confusion crossed her face. What do you mean? Hawk pointed to the man in the photo. Ray had no scars. He had a birthmark on his right shoulder, but no scars. He was careful. He never got hurt. He looked up at Rosa. His eyes were wild. This is Danny, he said. My brother Danny. Rosa's face went pale. She stood up. No, that's not Danny. That's Ray. I knew Ray. I loved Ray. Hawk shook his head. He was having trouble breathing. The world was spinning around him. "Danny had this scar," he said. His voice was rough and broken. "He got it when we were kids. He fell through a window trying to climb a tree. I was there. I saw it happen. The scar was deep. It never healed right." He held the photo up. His hand shook so hard the picture trembled. "That's Danny," he said, "not Ray." "Danny," Rosa sank back into her chair. Her hands covered her mouth. She stared at the photo with horror. But Ray told me his name was Ray. He said he left the club. He said he was alone." Hawk closed his eyes. His mind was racing through memories, through facts, through everything he thought he knew. His brother Ray had died in a crash 20 years ago. He had watched it happen. He had seen the bike go off the cliff. He had seen the fireball. But Danny? Danny had left the club a year later. He had said he wanted a different life. He had disappeared without a word. The club had searched for him. No trace. They assumed he had gone underground or gotten killed. Now, Hawk understood. Danny hadn't disappeared. Danny had become Ray. He had stolen his dead brother's name. He had started a new life. He had found Rosa. He had fathered a son who was now in prison. Hawk looked at Rosa. His voice was barely a whisper. "Maya's father," he said. "The man in prison. Who is he?" Rosa's eyes filled with fresh tears. She looked older than she had a moment ago. "Broken. Michael," she said. "My son. I named him Michael." "And his father?" Hawk asked. Rosa couldn't hold his gaze. She looked down at her hands. "Michael's father was a man I met when I was 16. He said his name was Ray." She swallowed. "He was your brother. He was Danny the whole time." Hawk sat frozen. The pieces clicked together like a lock turning. Danny had faked his death. He had taken Ray's identity. He had started a new life with Rosa. He had a son. Michael, that son, grew up. He had a daughter, Maya. Maya was Danny's granddaughter. Maya was Hawk's grandniece. And the man in prison, Michael, was Hawk's nephew. He looked at the photo again. At the scar on Danny's arm. The same scar he had seen on Cole, the new recruit in his club, just last week. But wait. That didn't make sense. Cole was young. Danny was old. The scar couldn't be the same scar. Unless Hawk's blood ran cold. The scar on Cole's arm was new. It was fresh and red. And it was in the same place as Danny's. That meant Cole had seen Danny somewhere. He had copied his scar. Or he had been given that scar on purpose. Hawk's eyes widened. His voice came out as a breath. "That man in prison," he said. "Maya's father. What's his full name?" Rosa looked up. "Michael Ramos." "Why?" Hawk stared at her. The room felt like it was closing in around him. "Because," he said slowly, "I met a kid last week, a new recruit. He has the same scar as the man in this photo. And he calls himself Cole." Rosa went pale. "Oh no," Hawk stood up. His fists were clenched at his sides. "I think your son is in trouble," he said. "I think someone is after him. And I think it's connected to my club." Hawk walked out of the trailer without another word. His boots crunched on the gravel. The desert air was cool against his hot skin. He swung his leg over his motorcycle and sat there for a long moment, staring at nothing. His hands were still shaking. He turned the key. The engine roared to life. It was a sound he knew better than his own heartbeat. But tonight, even that felt wrong. He rode through the dark desert highway. The moon was high and pale. The wind whipped at his face, but it didn't clear his head. Nothing could clear his head right now. 20 minutes later, he pulled into the clubhouse. The gravel lot was full of bikes. Music spilled out from the open door. Men laughed and shouted inside. It was a normal night. A normal night for everyone except him. Hawk killed the engine. He sat there in the quiet. The silence pressed on him like a weight. He walked inside. His brothers nodded at him. He nodded back. He didn't say a word. He moved to the bar and ordered a coffee. He didn't drink it. He just stood there, holding the warm cup, staring across the room. Cole was in the corner. He was laughing with two other recruits. His sleeve was rolled up. The scar was visible. That jagged line running from wrist to elbow. Hawk's eyes locked on it. He couldn't look away. It was the same scar, the same mark, the same spot as the photo, the same spot as Danny's arm. Cole felt the stare. He turned. His eyes met Hawk's. For a moment, something flickered in them. Confusion, maybe suspicion. Then Cole smiled and raised his cup. Hawk didn't smile back. He just stood there, holding his coffee, feeling the weight of everything he now knew. Danny was alive. Danny had faked his death. Danny had a son named Michael. Michael was in prison. Michael had a daughter named Maya. And Maya had looked up at Hawk with those big brown eyes and asked him to push her down a hill. A child with no legs. A child who just wanted to feel the wind. A child who was family. Hawk set the coffee down. He walked past Cole without a word. He went to the back room where the bunks were. He lay down on his cot and stared at the ceiling. The ceiling was cracked and stained. He had stared at it 1,000 times before. But tonight, it felt different. Tonight, everything felt different. His mind would not stop. It kept turning over the facts like stones in a river. Danny, Michael, Maya, Cole, the scar, the prison, the frame. Someone had set Michael up. Someone had put him in prison for a crime he didn't commit. Someone had placed Cole inside the club with a copied scar. Why? What was the connection? What was the plan? Hawk closed his eyes. But sleep did not come. He thought about Maya, her laugh when she flew down the hill. The way she held her arms out wide. The pure joy on her face. She had looked at him like he was a hero. She had looked at him like he mattered. He thought about Rosa. The way her hands had trembled when she handed him the photo. The years of secrets she had carried alone. The son she had given up. The granddaughter she had raised with nothing but love. And he thought about Danny. His little brother. The one who had always been soft. The one who had run away from the violence. The one who had found a new life, only to have it stolen from him. Hawk turned on his side. The cot creaked beneath him. He had spent his whole life running from feeling. He had built walls around his heart. He had told himself that being a Hell's Angel meant being hard, being untouchable, being alone. But Maya had broken through all of that with a single question. Can you push me down the hill? A child. A broken child. A child who had more courage than he had ever had. Hawk opened his eyes. The darkness of the room pressed around him. He knew what he had to do. He had to help Michael. He had to find the truth. He had to protect Maya. But doing that meant betraying the club. It meant going against everything he had ever known. It meant risking his life. He lay there in the silence, listening to the distant sounds of laughter from the main room. His brothers. His family. The only family he had ever had. But they weren't his real family, were they? His real family was out there. In a prison. In a trailer. In a little girl with a broken smile and a heart full of hope. Hawk took a slow breath. He stared at the ceiling and made a silent promise. I will find the truth. I will help my brother. I will be there for Maya. No matter what it costs me. The next morning came too fast. Hawk had not slept. He had only stared at the ceiling and waited for the sun. When the first gray light slipped through the dusty window, he sat up. His bones ached. His heart was heavy. But his mind was clear. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Not to the prison operator, not to the front desk. He called an old contact, a man named Ernesto, who worked in the records office. Ernesto owed him a favor from years ago, a favor that had never been collected. Until now. Hawk, Ernesto said. His voice was low and careful. I was wondering when you would cash that in. I need a visit with a prisoner, Hawk said. Name is Danny Walker, also known as Michael Reyes. There was a pause, the sound of fingers tapping on a keyboard. Michael Reyes, he is in C block. High security. Visits need to be requested 48 hours in advance. Hawk closed his eyes. I need it today. You know I cannot bend those rules. Ernesto, Hawk said. His voice was quiet. Hard. I saved your son's life. You said you would do anything. Another pause. Then Ernesto sighed. Be here by noon. I will make it happen. Do not make me regret this, Hawk. I will not, Hawk said. And he meant it. He hung up. He grabbed his leather vest. He looked at the empty clubhouse. Everyone else was still asleep. The silence felt good. It felt honest. He walked out into the morning air. The desert was still and cold. He swung his leg over his motorcycle and pressed the start button. The engine roared. 2 hours. That was how long the drive would take. 2 hours to the state penitentiary. 2 hours to face his brother. The road stretched out ahead of him like a scar across the land. The sky was a pale blue. The mountains stood far away and quiet. Hawk kept his eyes on the road and his mind on the past. He remembered Danny as a boy, small and skinny, always with a book in his hands, always asking questions, always too soft for the life their father had made for them. Hawk had tried to protect him. He had failed. Danny had run. Danny had vanished. And Hawk had let him go, believing the lie that Danny was dead. Believing the lie that his brother had crashed and burned on some empty road. But it was all a story. A story Danny had told to escape. A story that had worked, until someone else wrote a new ending for him. The prison rose out of the desert like a gray monster. Tall walls, rows of razor wire, guard towers with men holding rifles. Hawk parked his bike in the lot and killed the engine. He sat there for a long moment. His hands were steady now. That was good. He needed them steady. He walked through the metal detectors. He emptied his pockets. He was patted down. He showed his ID. A guard looked at his vest and frowned. You cannot wear that inside, the guard said. Hawk took off his vest. He folded it carefully and handed it over. The guard put it in a locker. Follow me, the guard said. Hawk followed. Down a long hallway, through a heavy steel door, into a room that smelled of bleach and sadness. The visiting room was a wide open space. Tables bolted to the floor. Plastic chairs. A vending machine that hummed in the corner. A few other visitors sat quietly, waiting. Hawk took a seat at an empty table. He folded his hands in front of him. He waited. Minutes crawled by. The clock on the wall ticked too loud. Hawk kept his eyes on the door. Then the door opened. 2 guards walked in. Behind them came a man in a gray prison jumpsuit. He was thin. His cheeks were hollow. His hair was cropped short. His eyes were sunken and dark. Danny, his brother. The man who was supposed to be dead. Danny looked at Hawk. His face went still. Something moved behind his eyes. Something cold. The guards led him to the table. He did not sit. He just stood there, staring down at Hawk like he was looking at a ghost. "You," Danny said. His voice was rough. It was a voice that had not been used for soft words in a long time. Hawk opened his mouth. The words were stuck in his throat. He had practiced this. He had planned every sentence in his head on the ride over. But now that the moment was here, none of it felt right. "I came to see you," Hawk said. Danny let out a laugh. It was a bitter sound. It was not a happy laugh. It was the sound of a man who had given up on joy. "You abandoned me," Danny said. His hands were shaking now. His voice cracked with anger. "You left me to die. Why are you here?" Hawk did not look away. He let the anger wash over him. He had earned it. He had carried that guilt for over a decade. "I did not know," Hawk said. His voice was low and rough. "I thought you died in a crash. I thought it was my fault. I carried that with me every single day." Danny shook his head. His jaw was tight. "You believed what they told you. You did not look for me." "You are right," Hawk said. "I did not. I was too lost, too blinded by the club. I let the lie stand because the truth was too hard to face." Danny finally sat down. He put his hands flat on the table. They were thin and scarred. He stared at them for a long moment. "So why now?" Danny asked. His voice was quieter. "Why did you come?" Hawk took a breath. He told him about Maya. He told him about the diner, the little girl on the curb with broken legs, the skateboard, the empty hill. He told him about the pure joy in her laughter as he pushed her down the slope. Danny's eyes went wide. His lips parted. He said nothing. Then, Hawk told him about Rosa. He told him about the old photo, the scar on the forearm, the new recruit named Cole who carried the same mark. "That scar," Hawk said. "It is the same scar you got when we were kids, the one from the fence wire. I saw it, and I knew." Danny's face went pale. His shoulders started to shake. He pressed his hands over his eyes. "I have a daughter," Danny whispered. His voice broke. "I have a daughter, and I have never held her." Hawk reached across the table. He did not grab Danny. He just placed his hand there, palm up, an offering. "You have a brother too," Hawk said, "and I am not leaving again." Danny dropped his hands. His eyes were red and wet. But his face twisted into something angry, something bitter. "It does not matter," Danny said. "I am stuck here. They made sure of it." "Who?" Hawk asked. Danny looked around the room. The guards were far away. The other visitors were lost in their own quiet worlds. He leaned forward. "A man named Silas," Danny said. His voice was barely a whisper. "He runs the Vipers, a rival crew. We had a run-in years ago. I saw something I should not have seen. A job he pulled. A robbery. He did not want any witnesses." Hawk felt a cold stone settle in his stomach. "The robbery they locked you up for." "Yes," Danny said. "Silas planted evidence. A bag with the cash. My fingerprints on it. He had someone inside the club feed me false information. I walked right into his trap." "They framed you," Hawk said. Danny nodded. His head hung low. "I have no proof, no witnesses. No one believes a man like me. I have nothing." Hawk sat back. His mind was spinning. He thought of Maya. He thought of her smile. He thought of the empty hill. "Maybe you have something," Hawk said. "Something you forgot." Danny looked up. "What do you mean?" "When you ran away," Hawk said, "when you faked your death, did you keep anything? A record? A note? Anything?" Danny froze. His eyes flickered. He looked at the table. Then he looked back at Hawk. "There is a tape," Danny said. His voice was shaky. "I was not completely careless. I filmed the whole thing. The robbery, Silas's face, everything. I hid it." Hawk leaned closer. "Where?" Danny swallowed. He closed his eyes. His fists were clenched on the table. "The old hideout," Danny said. "The first clubhouse. The one we had when we were young. Out in the desert. It has been abandoned for years." Hawk remembered that place. A falling down shack. Rusted barrels. A cracked concrete floor. It sat miles from anywhere. "There is a toolbox," Danny said. "A red metal toolbox. It was Dad's. I hid the tape underneath the bottom tray. I thought I would come back for it. But I never got the chance." Hawk nodded. He already knew what he was going to do. "I will find it," Hawk said. Danny shook his head. "It is too dangerous. Silas has people everywhere. If he finds out you are looking into this, he will come after you. He will come after Maya." Hawk looked at his brother. His voice was steady. "Then I will make sure he never finds out," Hawk said. "And I will make sure Maya is safe." Danny studied him. For a moment, something soft appeared in his eyes, something that looked like hope. Then it vanished. "Be careful, Hawk," Danny said. "Please." Hawk stood up. He looked down at his brother, the man he had lost, the man he had found again. "I will be back," Hawk said, "and I will bring that tape, and I will bring you home." He turned and walked toward the door. He did not look back, but he felt Danny's eyes on him the whole way. The clubhouse sat quiet under a low orange moon. Hawk parked his motorcycle near the back door. He did not go inside. He waited in the shadows and watched the windows. Through the grimy glass, he saw the brothers playing cards. Laughter spilled out. Smoke curled into the air. No one noticed him. That was good. Hawk had a plan. It was simple and dangerous. He would ride out to the old hideout. He would find the red toolbox. He would take the tape and leave. No one would know. He waited until the lights went low inside. The men were settling in for the night. Hawk heard the click of a door lock. Then the buzz of a television. Then nothing but the wind. He walked his motorcycle away from the clubhouse. He did not start the engine until he was far down the dirt road. The engine hummed low and steady. The desert opened up around him. Dark shapes of cacti passed like lonely sentinels. The old hideout was a warehouse on the outskirts of town. It had been abandoned for years. The roof sagged in the middle. The windows were boarded up. Weeds grew tall around the cracked concrete. The air smelled like rust and dry dust. Hawk killed the engine and let the silence settle. He pulled a small flashlight from his vest. The beam cut through the dark like a thin silver knife. He pushed the front door open. It groaned on its hinges. Inside, the warehouse was a graveyard of old memories. Broken chairs. Empty bottles. A faded mural on the wall showed an eagle with spread wings. Hawk remembered painting it with Danny when they were young. His chest tightened. He moved through the room slowly. His boots crunched on shattered glass. A rat scurried across the floor. He ignored it. He was looking for the corner where they used to keep the tools. And there it was. A red metal toolbox, covered in dust and cobwebs, sitting on a rusted barrel like it had been waiting for him all these years. Hawk knelt down. His hands were steady. He opened the latch. The lid creaked open. Inside were old wrenches and cracked handles. He lifted the bottom tray carefully. His fingers found something thin and square. The tape. He pulled it out. It was dusty and worn, but the label was still there. In Danny's handwriting it said, "Evidence." Hawk held it like it was made of gold. He slipped the tape inside his vest. He closed the toolbox and stood up. His heart was beating fast. He had done it. Now he just had to get back and figure out the next step. But then he heard it. Footsteps, soft but deliberate, hitting the concrete behind him. Hawk froze. He did not turn around right away. His mind raced. Who would be out here at this hour? Who knew about this place? A voice cut through the dark, young and calm, with a hard edge. "What are you doing here, old man?" Hawk turned slowly. Cole stood in the doorway. The new recruit, the one with the scar on his forearm. The one who looked like Danny. His hands were in his pockets. His face was half hidden in shadow, but his eyes were sharp and cold. Hawk forced his voice to stay steady. "I could ask you the same thing." Cole smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "I saw you leave the clubhouse. Thought I would follow. Just to make sure you were okay. Old men get lost sometimes." The air grew thick between them. Hawk felt the weight of the tape against his chest. He said nothing else. He just watched Cole and waited. But Cole did not move. He stood there, blocking the door. The moon behind him made his shadow stretch long across the floor. "What are you doing here?" Cole asked again. His voice was harder now. Hawk looked at the scar on Cole's arm. He looked at the young man's face. And he knew, deep in his gut, that Cole was not just a curious recruit. He was watching, waiting, and he would not let Hawk walk out easy. Hawk let out a slow breath. He made his voice easy, almost lazy. "I came to remember. That is all." Cole tilted his head. "Remember what?" Hawk gestured around the dark warehouse. "This place. My brother and I used to come here when we were kids. We painted that eagle on the wall. We fixed bikes in this corner." He let the words hang in the air. Sometimes a man needs to visit his past. Cole stared at him for a long moment. The silence stretched like a rubber band about to snap. Hawk could feel the tape pressing against his chest, small but heavy as an anvil. "A man visits his past in the middle of the night?" Cole asked. "Seems odd." Hawk shrugged. "I don't sleep much. The desert is quiet. It helps me think." Cole took a step closer. His eyes moved over Hawk's vest, his hands, his face. He was looking for something. A lie, a crack, a reason to act. Hawk held his ground. He had been in harder spots than this. He had stared down men with guns and men with knives. He had walked through fire and come out the other side. This kid was nothing. But the tape was everything. Cole finally smiled. It was thin and cold. "All right, old man, go home. Sleep it off." He stepped aside, just enough for Hawk to pass. Hawk walked toward the door, his boots steady on the cracked concrete. He did not run. He did not look back. That would have shown fear. He passed Cole and felt the young man's eyes on his back, like a pair of nails being hammered into his spine. Hawk kept walking. He got on his motorcycle. He turned the key. The engine roared to life. He rode away without a word. But in his side mirror, he saw Cole still standing in the doorway, watching him disappear into the dark. Hawk knew one thing for sure. He had not fooled anyone. The ride back to his apartment took 20 minutes. The wind was cold against his face. The desert stretched out like a sleeping beast. But Hawk did not feel tired. He felt alive for the first time in years. He parked behind his building. He walked up the stairs to his small apartment. The door had 3 locks. He opened all of them. He stepped inside and locked them again. The apartment was bare. A couch, a table, a kitchen with old dishes, a bed in the corner that he never made. It was not much, but it was his. Hawk went to the kitchen. He pulled up a loose floorboard near the stove. Underneath was a small hollow space. He had dug it himself years ago. He had never used it. Not once. Now he placed the tape inside. Carefully, gently, like it was a baby. He put the floorboard back. He pressed it down until it was flush with the rest. He stepped on it once, twice. It did not move. He sat on the couch and stared at the wall. The tape was safe. The plan could move forward. But there was something else he needed to do first. Something important. The next morning, the sun rose bright and warm. Hawk showered. He put on his cleanest shirt. He tucked the black vest in the closet. Today he did not want to look like a Hell's Angel. Today he wanted to look like a man with a kind heart. He drove his truck to the small shop on the edge of town. Inside, an old man sold toys and trinkets. Hawk bought a kite. It was yellow with a red tail. Hand-painted. The kind of kite you see at the beach, dancing in the wind. He drove to Rosa's trailer. Maya was sitting on the front steps. Her prosthetics were on. She looked up when the truck pulled in. Her eyes lit up. "Hawk!" She yelled. "You came!" He got out and walked toward her. He held the kite behind his back. "I brought you something." Her brow furrowed. "What is it?" He pulled it out. The wind caught it and made the tail flutter. Maya gasped. Her whole face opened up like a flower. "A kite!" She shouted. "For me?" "Yep, for you." She stood up. Her prosthetic legs wobbled a little, but she balanced herself. "Can we fly it right now?" Hawk looked at the sky. The clouds were white and puffy. The wind was just right. "I think we can." "You know a good spot?" Maya grinned wide. "There is a field behind the school. It is all open, no trees, no wires. Then let us go." They drove to the field together. The grass was tall and green. The wind whispered through it. Maya walked as fast as she could into the open space. Hawk followed with the kite in his hand. He showed her how to hold the string, how to feel the wind, how to let the kite catch the air. "Ready?" he asked. "Ready." She yelled. He tossed the kite up. The wind caught it. It rose into the sky like a bird set free. Maya laughed, a big, full laugh that came from her belly. She pulled the string. She let it out. The kite soared higher and higher. Hawk stood beside her and watched. The yellow kite danced against the blue sky. Maya looked up with wonder in her eyes. For a moment, she was not a girl with missing legs. She was just a kid flying a kite on a perfect day. The month passed like water through fingers. Hawk showed up at Rosa's trailer every day. He was always there with a tool in hand or a bag of groceries. He fixed the loose railing on the front steps that had wobbled for years. He replaced the kitchen tap that dripped all night long. He even mowed the patchy lawn without anyone asking. Rosa stopped looking surprised. She started looking grateful. But his best time was spent with Maya. He brought her a small electric bike from a pawn shop. It was old and scuffed, but he worked on it for 3 nights. He tuned the motor. He polished the frame. He balanced the wheels until they spun true. Maya rode it around the trailer park with a grin so wide it looked like it might split her face. Her prosthetics had been fitted for walking, not riding, but she managed. Hawk jogged beside her whenever she wobbled. He was ready to catch her, but she never fell. She was too determined for that. She was the bravest kid he had ever known. Faster. Hawk. She shouted over the electric hum. Push me faster. He laughed and matched her pace. His boots pounded the dirt. His lungs burned. But he did not stop. He would not stop. Not for anything. In the evenings, he helped Rosa cook simple meals: beans and rice, chicken and potatoes. He washed the dishes while she sat in her worn armchair and told him stories about the old days. About her daughter. About Maya's birth. She never talked about Danny. Not yet. But Hawk saw the shadow in her eyes whenever his name came close. Most nights, he read Maya her bedtime stories. She had a stack of worn paperback books, fairy tales and adventures, dragons and knights. He sat on the edge of her bed and read in his low, rumbling voice. She listened with her chin on her knees, her eyes wide and bright. Sometimes she asked him questions. "Hawk, did you ever ride a dragon?" "No, little one. But I rode a motorcycle across the desert once. That is close enough." "Did you ever fight a dragon?" "I fought a few men who acted like dragons. It is the same thing." She giggled at that. The sound was like tiny bells. It made Hawk's chest feel warm and tight at the same time. One night he finished reading a story about a princess who lost her voice and found it again through love. Maya was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked at him with her serious eyes. "Hawk, can I ask you something?" she said. He closed the book. "You can ask me anything." "Do you think my father loves me?" The question hit him like a punch to the gut. He took a breath. He thought about Danny sitting in prison, a man who had been framed, a man who had missed 9 years of his daughter's life. "Yes," Hawk said. "I know he does. How do you know?" "Because family is family. Love does not disappear just because we cannot be together. It waits. It stays patient." Maya nodded slowly. Then her eyes filled with tears. "I wish you were my father," she whispered. Hawk felt his own eyes sting. He blinked hard, but the tears came anyway. He did not hide them, not from her. He reached out and pulled Maya into his arms. She hugged him back, her small hands gripping his shirt. Neither of them spoke for a long time. Finally, Hawk cleared his throat. His voice was rough, but steady. "I am going to bring your father home, Maya. I promise you that. I will do everything in my power to make it happen. You will have your family. I swear it." She squeezed him tighter. He held her close and felt her heartbeat against his chest. For the first time in his life, he understood what truly mattered. It was not the club, not the patch, not the reputation. It was this. The warmth of a child who trusted him. There was nothing he would not do for her. And he meant every word he had said. The clubhouse was alive that night. Men laughed and talked over the sound of a radio playing old blues songs. Hawk sat in the corner with a bottle in his hand, but he had not taken a drink. His mind was elsewhere. It was always elsewhere now. Maya's face floated behind his eyes, the way she laughed on that electric bike, the way she said, "I wish you were my father." The promise he had made to her. He meant it, every word. Cole walked by and clapped him on the shoulder. "You look lost, old man. Everything okay?" Hawk shrugged him off. "Fine," Cole smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. Hawk noticed that. He had noticed a lot about Cole lately. The way the young man watched him. The way he seemed to appear wherever Hawk went. Then the sirens started. They were distant at first. A faint wail carried on the desert wind. Hawk sat up straighter. His instincts kicked in. Something was wrong. He walked to the window and looked out. In the distance, toward the old hideout, an orange glow lit up the night sky. The flames were high and hungry. "No," Hawk whispered. He ran for the door. Cole called after him, but Hawk did not stop. He threw his leg over his motorcycle and kicked it to life. The engine roared. He tore out of the parking lot with gravel flying behind him. The old hideout was a brick building on the edge of town. It had been the club's first home, decades ago, dusty and forgotten. But it held secrets. It held the toolbox with the evidence that could free Danny. Hawk reached the building in minutes. The heat hit him before he even stopped. Flames poured from the windows. Black smoke rolled into the sky like a storm cloud. The fire department was already there, but the building was too far gone. He jumped off his bike and ran toward the door. A firefighter grabbed his arm and held him back. "You cannot go in there," the man shouted. Hawk fought against him. "I have to. There is something inside. It is too late. The whole place is coming down." Hawk watched the flames consume everything. The old bar, the cracked pool table, the back room where the toolbox sat on a dusty shelf. All of it. Gone. He sank to his knees in the dirt. His hands trembled. The evidence. The tape. The only proof that Danny was innocent. It was ash now. His chest felt hollow. He thought of Maya. He thought of the promise he had made. And he thought of Danny in his cell, waiting for a miracle that would never come. Hawk looked around. Something caught his eye. A figure standing at the edge of the firelight, watching Cole. The young man did not move. He just stood there with his arms crossed and a strange calm on his face. Hawk felt a cold chill run down his spine. "Cole," he said, "what are you doing here?" Cole shrugged. "I followed you, saw the fire, figured I should make sure you were okay." But his voice was too flat, his eyes too steady. Hawk did not believe him, not for a second. Hawk's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out. The screen lit up with Rosa's number. He answered, but it was not Rosa's voice on the other end. It was Maya. She was screaming. "Hawk. Hawk, please. Grandma will not wake up. She fell, and she will not wake up." His blood turned to ice. "I am coming, Maya. Stay with her. I am coming right now." He jumped on his bike and rode like the devil was chasing him. The trailer park was 10 minutes away. It felt like 10 years. His heart pounded in his ears. The wind dried the tears on his face. He skidded to a stop in front of the trailer and ran up the steps. The door was open. Inside, Rosa lay on the floor, her body still and pale. Maya knelt beside her, shaking her grandmother's shoulder. "Hawk," Maya cried. "Help her. Please help her." Hawk dropped to his knees. He pressed his fingers to Rosa's neck. A pulse. It was there. Weak, but there. He scooped Rosa into his arms. She was light. So light. He carried her to his bike and laid her across the seat. Then he turned to Maya. Her face was streaked with tears. Her prosthetics stood crooked on her legs. "Get on," he said. "Hold on to me and do not let go." Maya climbed on behind him. Her small arms wrapped around his waist. He felt her shaking. He heard her crying. He kicked the bike to life and rode through the night. The sirens of the ambulance matching his speed. The fire was behind them. The loss was behind them. But ahead of them was something worse. The fear of losing Rosa. The fear of losing everything. The hospital lights were too bright. They hummed and buzzed like angry bees. Hawk sat in a plastic chair beside Rosa's bed, watching the machines keep time with her heartbeat. Beep, beep, beep. Each sound was a small miracle. Rosa's face was pale against the white pillow. Her hand felt thin and cold in his. He held it anyway. He had held many things in his life: beer bottles, motorcycle handles, a brother's coffin. But this felt different. This felt like holding a promise. Maya sat in the chair next to him. Her small hand rested on top of his. She had not let go since they arrived. Her prosthetics had been removed and set aside. She looked smaller without them. Younger, more scared. She will wake up, Maya said. It was not a question. It was a statement. A hope she needed to believe. Hawk nodded. She will. She is strong. You come from strong women. Maya leaned her head against his arm. He could feel her breathing slow. The fear was still there, but she trusted him. That trust felt heavier than any weight he had ever carried. The doctor came in, a young woman with kind eyes and tired shoulders. She spoke softly. Your grandmother had a stroke, she said to Maya. She is stable now, but she needs rest. We will watch her closely. You did the right thing by calling for help. Maya nodded. Hawk watched the doctor leave. Then he looked at Rosa again. 20 years ago, she had loved his brother. She had carried his child. She had given that child away. And now that child sat in a prison cell, waiting for a justice that had just burned to ash. He squeezed her hand. You hold on, he whispered. You hold on, Rosa. There is still work to do. Hours passed. Maya fell asleep with her head on his lap. Hawk did not move. He stayed still as stone, watching Rosa breathe. The nurses came and went. The machines hummed. The world outside the hospital kept turning. Then his phone buzzed. A message from the club president. Meeting. Tonight? Be there. Hawk looked down at Maya. He could not leave her, but he could not ignore the club either. He called a neighbor, an old woman who watched over Maya sometimes. She came quickly and took Maya's hand. I will be back, Hawk said. Maya looked at him with sleepy eyes. Promise. He knelt down and looked her straight in the face. I promise. He rode to the clubhouse. The parking lot was full. The air was thick with smoke and tension. Men stood in a circle, their arms crossed. The president, a man named Rick, stood in the middle with a hard face. Hawk, Rick said. We need to talk. Hawk walked into the middle of the circle. He felt their eyes on him. Cole stood at the edge, watching with that same flat smile. Tell them, Cole said. Tell them what you did. Hawk looked at Rick, then at the men around him. These were his brothers, men he had bled with, men he had ridden with for years. But he knew what was coming. I found out my brother is alive, Hawk said. He was framed. I was trying to help him. By sneaking into the old hideout? Rick said. Behind our backs? Breaking our rules? Yes, the word hung in the air like smoke. Rick shook his head slowly. You went behind our back. You put the club at risk. You lied to us, Hawk. We cannot have that. Hawk felt something crack inside him. I did what I had to do. For family. We are your family, Rick said. Or we were. Rick reached out and took Hawk's colors, the leather vest with the club patch on the back. Hawk felt it lift off his shoulders like a weight being ripped away. But it did not feel light. It felt like losing a limb. The men watched in silence. No one spoke. No one looked at him. Cole stepped forward and took the vest from Rick. He held it up like a trophy. Your brother is gone, Cole said. Your grandmother is dying. Your girl has no legs and no home. You have nothing now, old man." Hawk looked at Cole. There was something in the young man's eyes, a flicker of satisfaction. Hawk knew then. Cole had set the fire. Cole had destroyed the evidence. And Cole knew more than he was saying. But Hawk did not fight. He did not swing. He just turned and walked out of the clubhouse. The door slammed behind him. He stood in the parking lot. His motorcycle gleamed under the streetlight. He had that. He had his hands. He had his heart, even if it was broken into pieces. He climbed on his bike and rode away. The clubhouse shrank in his mirror until it was just a speck of light in the desert dark. The wind hit his face. For a moment, he felt like he might fall apart. But then, he thought of Maya, her small hand in his. Her voice saying, "You still have me." He held on to those words. They were all he had left. The apartment was small. Smaller than the trailer. Smaller than a jail cell almost, but it was clean. It had a bed, a stove, a window that looked out at a brick wall. Hawk stood in the middle of it and wondered how a man's whole life could shrink down to this. He had money for 1 month. Then nothing. He found work at a garage 3 blocks away. The owner was an old man named Pete who did not ask questions. He just looked at Hawk's hands and said, "You know engines?" Hawk nodded. "Start Monday." The work was honest. It filled his hands and emptied his mind. He changed oil. He replaced brakes. He listened to the hum of engines and tried not to think about the hum of hospital machines. At night he walked to the hospital. He sat with Rosa until visiting hours ended. Then he walked to Maya's trailer to see her. Maya's neighbor, Mrs. Alvarez, watched her now. She was a kind woman with a round face and warm hands. She made tamales and told stories about her own grandchildren. Maya stayed with her most days. She did her schoolwork at the kitchen table. She practiced walking with her new loaner prosthetics, the ones the hospital had given her while her old ones were being repaired. Hawk came every day after work. He sat on the porch with Maya. They talked about nothing and everything. The weather, her math test, the stray cat that lived under the porch. He never talked about the club. He never talked about the vest he used to wear. But Maya saw it anyway. "You look sad," she said one evening. He shook his head. "I am fine. You are not." She climbed into his lap and wrapped her small arms around his neck. "You lost your family, your brothers, your club. You lost everything." Hawk closed his eyes. He felt the weight of her small body against his chest. He felt the love in her hug. And he felt the tears push against the back of his eyes. "Not everything," he said. His voice was rough. Maya pulled back and looked at him. Her eyes were bright and clear, wise in a way that made his heart ache. "You still have me," she said. The words hit him like a punch. He opened his mouth to speak, but nothing came out. He just held her. He held her for a long time. The sun went down. The streetlights came on. A dog barked somewhere in the distance. When he finally let go, he saw that her cheek was wet. She had been crying for him. "Do not cry," he said softly. "I am not crying," she said, wiping her face. "I am just leaking a little." He laughed. It was a ragged sound, rusty like an old engine. But it was real. It was the first real laugh he had let out in weeks. Maya smiled, and for a moment the darkness did not feel so heavy. The next morning, Hawk got a call from Sarah, the public defender. Her voice was tight. "Hawk, I need you to come to my office." He rode his bike across town. The streets were gray and wet from an overnight rain. Sarah's office was in a small building near the courthouse. She met him at the door. Her face told him everything before she said a word. "They dismissed the case," she said. Hawk stood still. He felt the words land like stones in his chest. "What do you mean, dismissed?" "I mean they are moving Danny to a maximum security facility out of state. We lost the appeal window. Without the evidence tape, there is nothing we can do. There is no case anymore." Hawk stared at her. His hands hung at his sides. He did not move. He did not blink. "Can we visit him?" he asked. "No," Sarah said gently. "Not there. They do not allow outside visits for at least a year. He is in a facility in Colorado." "It is a different world, Hawk. I am sorry." Hawk turned and walked out. He stood on the sidewalk. The rain started again, soft and cold. He lifted his face to the sky and let it wash over him. His brother was gone. His club was gone. His evidence was ash. His hope was a locked door with no key. He got on his motorcycle and rode. He did not know where. He just rode. The wind hit his face. The road stretched out ahead of him, endless and empty, and in the small apartment near Maya's school, the window stayed dark. The bed stayed empty. And the man who lived there sat on the curb outside, staring at the horns of his handlebars, holding on to the only words he had left. "You still have me." He whispered them to himself like a prayer. He whispered them until the rain stopped. He whispered them until the streetlights came on. And then he walked back into his small, empty room, and he did not have an answer. But he had a spark. Just one. Just enough. 2 weeks passed like slow rain. Hawk learned the rhythm of the garage. He woke before dawn. He worked until his hands ached. He ate cold sandwiches at a metal desk, and every evening he walked to Mrs. Alvarez's house to see Maya. She was doing better. Her new loaner prosthetics fit tighter. She walked with less wobble. She laughed more. But Hawk saw the questions in her eyes, the ones she was too kind to ask. One night she sat on the porch steps and watched him pull up on his motorcycle. She had a notebook in her lap. A drawing of a family. 3 stick figures. A big one with a beard, a small one with pigtails, and a middle one with a thin smile. "Is that us?" Hawk asked. Maya nodded. "I drew you, me, and my dad, when he comes home." Hawk sat down beside her. He looked at the drawing. The middle figure had a small scar on his arm. Just like Danny. Just like the photo Rosa had shown him. "He will come home," Hawk said. He did not know if he believed it, but he said it anyway. Maya leaned her head against his shoulder. "Can I live with you until he does?" The question hit him like a stone. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "I will try," he said. And he did. The next morning, Hawk walked into the county office. He wore his cleanest shirt. He had a folder of papers, pay stubs from the garage, a letter from Pete saying he was a good worker, a note from Mrs. Alvarez saying he was kind to Maya. The woman behind the desk had tired eyes. She took his folder. She flipped through it. She looked at his name. Then she typed something into her computer. Her face changed. "Mr. Hawkins," she said slowly. "You have a criminal record." Hawk nodded. "It is old. I was young. I made mistakes." She shook her head. "I understand. But the system does not. You have a history of gang affiliation." Motorcycle club membership. Assault charges. The court will not approve an adoption with this record. Hawk felt the floor tilt. "But I am all she has." The woman's eyes softened. She looked at him with something like pity. She has a grandmother. Rosa is her legal guardian. If Rosa becomes unable to care for her, the state will place Maya in foster care. They will not place her with you. Hawk stood up. His hands were shaking. There has to be something. The woman closed the folder. I am sorry. There is nothing. He walked out of the office. The sun was too bright. The street was too loud. He stood on the sidewalk and felt the world close in around him. He had lost his brother. He had lost his club. He had lost his evidence. And now he was losing Maya. He rode to the hospital. He needed to see Rosa. He needed to tell her. He needed to ask her what to do. Rosa was awake. She was sitting up in bed, propped against pillows. Her face was pale. Her hands were thin. But her eyes were sharp. They always had been. Hawk sat in the chair beside her. He told her everything. The adoption, the rejection, the system, the wall. Rosa listened. She did not interrupt. When he finished, she closed her eyes for a long moment. Then she reached under her pillow and pulled out a faded envelope. The paper was yellow. The edges were soft. The handwriting was messy. A man's handwriting. Hawk recognized it before she said a word. Danny sent this to me years ago, Rosa said. Her voice was weak but clear. He told me to keep it safe. He said if anything ever happened to him, I should give it to someone I trusted. She held the envelope out to Hawk. He took it. His hands were rough. The paper felt fragile in his fingers. There is something inside you must see, Rosa said. Hawk looked at the envelope. His brother's name was written on the front. Danny, his brother, the man he had lost twice. He turned the envelope over. The seal was old. The flap was loose. He opened it slowly, careful not to tear the paper. Inside was a letter. And something else. A small key, old and rusted, tied to a piece of string. Hawk looked at Rosa. What is this? Rosa smiled. A tired, knowing smile. Read the letter, she said, and you will know. Hawk unfolded the letter. The paper was thin and worn, creased in 100 places. Danny's handwriting was tight and hurried. Rosa, if you are reading this, something went wrong. I was set up. A man named Silas framed me for the robbery. I saw him plant the evidence with my own eyes. I recorded it. I hid the tape in the toolbox at the old hideout, the one from the first garage we ever used. But I got scared. I thought they would find it. So I made a copy. It is in this envelope. Hide it. Do not tell anyone. If I ever get out, I will come for it. If I do not, give it to someone who can use it. Your son, Danny. Hawk read the letter twice. Then a third time. His hands were shaking. He reached into the envelope again. His fingers touched something hard and square. He pulled it out. It was a small videotape, the kind people used in old camcorders. It was wrapped in thick plastic, sealed tight with tape. The plastic was crinkled and dusty, like it had been hidden for years. Hawk turned it over in his hands. The label on the side was blank, but his brother's words rang in his head. Silas. The tape. The proof. Where can I watch this? Hawk asked. Rosa pointed to a small television in the corner of the hospital room. There is a VCR under the bed. The nurses use it for movies. It should still work. Hawk looked at the television, then at the tape, then at Rosa. I will bring it back, he said. He did not wait. He stood up, tucked the tape into his jacket, and walked out of the room. The nurse at the desk gave him an odd look. He ignored her. He found the hospital's family lounge down the hall. A small room with a couch and an old television. A boy was watching cartoons. Hawk looked at the boy, then at the television. The boy's mother pulled him out of the room with a nervous glance at Hawk's worn leather vest. The room was empty now. Hawk closed the door. He knelt down and looked at the old VCR player. It was dusty. The buttons were faded. He slid the tape inside. The machine made a low whirring sound. The screen flickered. Then, the picture came to life. The footage was grainy. The colors were washed out. It looked like it was filmed at night, in a dimly lit room. A warehouse. Hawk recognized it. The old clubhouse. The first one they ever had. Before the club grew. Before everything fell apart. A figure moved into the frame. A man. Tall, thin, wearing a brown jacket. He moved slowly, carefully. He knelt down beside a metal cabinet. He opened the door. He pulled out a bag. The man looked at the bag. Then he looked around. His face turned toward the camera. Hawk's breath caught in his throat. It was Silas. Younger, thinner, but unmistakable. The scar above his left eye, the cold way he moved. Silas put the bag inside the cabinet and closed the door. Then he pulled out a second bag. He hid it behind a pile of crates. He stood up. He looked at the camera again, directly at it. Recording, he whispered to himself, "Better get the camera out of here." The footage went black. Hawk sat back on his heels. His heart was pounding. His hands were still shaking, but this time, it was not fear. It was hope. This tape was everything. It showed Silas planting the evidence. It showed him hiding it. It showed him looking right at the spot where Danny's camera must have been. It proved Danny was innocent. It proved Silas was guilty. Hawk pulled the tape out of the VCR. He wrapped it back in the plastic. He tucked it inside his jacket, close to his chest. He knew what he had to do. He had to get this tape to the right people. A lawyer, a judge, the police, someone who could free Danny. But he also knew the danger. Silas had people everywhere. Cole was still out there. The rival gang had ears in the county. If they found out the tape existed, if they found out Hawk had it, they would destroy it. And they would destroy him. Hawk looked out the window of the lounge. The sun was setting. Orange light spilled over the parking lot. He saw a motorcycle pull in. It was not his. The rider wore a leather vest, a familiar patch on the back. Cole, Hawk stepped back from the window. His hand went to his chest, pressing the tape against his heart. He had to move fast. He had to move quiet. There was no one he could trust, not the club, not the police, not anyone, except Sarah, the public defender, the one who had taken Danny's case. She believed in justice. She believed in the truth. Hawk slipped out the back door of the hospital. The tape was warm against his skin. He walked into the darkening night, his mind already planning his next move. Sarah's office was across town. He would go there. He would show her the tape. And then, with luck, he would bring his brother home. The night air was cool against Hawk's face as he walked the 2 miles across town. He did not take his bike. Too loud, too easy to follow. He kept to the back streets, his boots scuffing against cracked asphalt, the tape pressed against his chest like a second heartbeat. Sarah's office was above a laundromat. A single light burned in the upstairs window. Hawk climbed the narrow stairs and knocked. He heard footsteps. A chain rattled. The door opened a few inches. Sarah was a small woman with tired eyes and graying hair, pulled back in a loose bun. She wore a cardigan over a blouse with coffee stains on the sleeve. She looked at Hawk with a cautious expression. I'm closed, she said. If this is about a case, call the office in the morning. It's about Danny Cross, Hawk said. Sarah's eyes widened. She studied him for a long moment. Then she unlatched the chain and opened the door wider. You're the brother, she said. He told me about you. He talked about me? Not much. Just that he had a brother. Someone he thought about. She stepped aside. Come in. The office was small and cluttered. File boxes stacked against the walls. Photos of her kids on the desk. A plant that was barely alive. Hawk sat in the chair across from her desk. He pulled the tape from his jacket and set it on the desk between them. Before I said anything, Danny sent this to his son's mother. Rosa. It's a recording. It shows the man who framed him planting the evidence. Sarah picked up the tape. She turned it over in her hands. Her expression shifted from caution to curiosity. Do you have a VCR here? She nodded and gestured to an old television in the corner with a built-in player. I keep it for client interviews. Old habits. She slid the tape in. The screen flickered to life. The grainy footage played. Silas moving through the warehouse. Opening the cabinet. Hiding the bag. The cold way he looked at the camera. When it went black, Sarah sat in silence. She did not speak for a long time. Then she reached up and wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. God help me, she whispered. He actually did it. He really was innocent. Hawk nodded. I need you to take the case. He's been in there for years. He does not have any money. I do not have any money, but this tape is everything. Sarah looked at the blank screen. Then, at Hawk. Her eyes were red, but her jaw was set. I will take the case, she said. I will not charge you. Not for this. Why? She let out a breath. Because I have been doing this job for 15 years. I have seen a lot of people lie. A lot of people cheat. A lot of people do terrible things. But I have never seen a man walk into my office carrying his brother's freedom in his jacket. That is worth more than any fee. She picked up the tape and held it close. I will file the motion to reopen the case tomorrow morning. I will need to make copies. I will need to submit the original as evidence. This is a solid piece. But it will not be easy. Silas has connections. He will hear about this. He already might, Hawk said. There is a man in my club. Cole, he is tied to Silas. He saw me leave the hospital with the tape. Sarah's face paled. Then you need to go home and get your things. You cannot stay there tonight. My apartment is the last place they will look if I am not there. They will look, she said. They will tear it apart. You need to get there first and get anything important. Then you need to find somewhere safe to wait. Hawk stood up. He looked at the tape in her hands. For a moment he felt a strange calm settle over him. He had spent his whole life running, hiding, keeping everyone at arm's length. But now, for the first time in years, he had something worth protecting. I will be back in the morning, he said. Do not tell anyone where I am. Sarah nodded. She reached out and touched his arm. Hawk, this is a good thing you are doing. For your brother. For that little girl. You should know that. He did not answer. He just walked out the door and down the stairs into the night. He made it back to his apartment in 20 minutes. The building was quiet. The parking lot was empty. He climbed the stairs and unlocked the door. He moved quickly, packing a duffel bag with clothes and his savings from a coffee can in the kitchen. He was about to leave when he heard footsteps in the hall. Heavy, slow, deliberate, Hawk looked through the peephole. 2 men stood outside his door. They wore dark jackets. They had guns. Hawk backed away from the door. Silas had not wasted any time. Hawk's heart hammered in his chest. 2 men stood outside his door. They had guns. They were here for him. Or for the tape. The tape. The copy Sarah had made. She had pressed it into his hands an hour ago. "Keep this safe," she had said. "If anything happens to the original, this is our backup." He could not fight them with the tape on him. If they searched him, it would all be over. Danny would rot in prison. Maya would grow up without a father. Then he saw it. Maya's backpack, slumped by the door. She had left it there 2 weekends ago when he took her for ice cream. He had meant to return it. Now it would save everything. He moved fast. He grabbed the tape from his duffel bag. He slid it deep into the backpack's hidden pocket. He buried it under a crumpled drawing. A motorcycle with wings. Maya had drawn it for him. He zipped the bag and shoved it behind the couch. "Hawk." A voice boomed through the door. "Open up. We just want to talk." Hawk did not answer. He grabbed a heavy steel flashlight from his nightstand. It was solid. It would do. He stood beside the door. He counted his breaths. 1, 2, 3. The lock splintered. The door burst open. The first man came in low, gun raised. Hawk swung the flashlight in a wide arc. It cracked against the man's wrist. The gun hit the floor. The man howled and staggered back. The second man shoved past him. Bigger, younger, he threw a wild punch. It caught Hawk in the ribs. Pain exploded through him. He heard something snap. His breath caught. A broken rib. But he did not go down. He drove his shoulder into the big man's gut and slammed him against the wall. The man's head hit the drywall. He went limp. The first man reached for his gun. Hawk kicked it away. It slid under the couch, right next to Maya's backpack. Hawk planted his boots on the floor and put his body between the man and the couch. No one was getting to that backpack. Not while he was still standing. The man lunged. Hawk took the punch on his forearm. The pain in his ribs screamed. He answered with a headbutt. The man's brow split open. He fell back, blood streaming down his face. Then the sirens. Blue and red lights flashed through the window. Boots pounded on the stairs. The first man looked at Hawk with wild eyes. He had nowhere to run. The door slammed open. Officers flooded in, hands where we can see them. The 2 men dropped. Hawk raised his hands and stepped back. His ribs burned. But he kept his face calm. He kept his eyes on the couch. On the backpack, an older officer stepped forward. "Hawk, you all right? We got a call from Mrs. Delgado next door. She said she heard a fight." Hawk touched his side and winced. "I will live." They took the men away. Both of them. They were Silas's men. They had guns. They had orders. Under questioning, one of them broke. He told the police everything. The arson. The frame job. Silas, the whole ugly truth. By sunrise, Silas was in handcuffs. That same morning, Sarah walked into the courthouse. She carried the original tape in her briefcase. She had watched it a dozen times. Each time, the anger grew. Each time, the hope grew too. The courtroom was packed. Silas sat in the back, his face pale as bone. Sarah stood before the judge. She spoke in a clear, steady voice. "Your Honor, Danny Cross has spent 6 years in prison for a crime he did not commit. The man who framed him is Silas Reyes. The proof is on this tape." She slid the tape into the player. The screen flickered. The grainy footage filled the room. Silas moving through the warehouse. Silas opening the cabinet. Silas hiding the bag. Silas planting the evidence. The courtroom went silent. Silas stared at the screen. He could not look away. The whole story spilled out. The conspiracy. The frame. The years of lies. Sarah turned to the judge. 6 years of a man's life were stolen. His daughter grew up without him. His brother risked everything to set him free. The truth is here, and the truth cannot be ignored. The judge stared at the frozen screen. Then he looked at Silas. Then he looked at Sarah. "Motion granted," he said. "Mr. Cross will be released immediately." Sarah closed her briefcase. She allowed herself a small smile. In the back of the courtroom, a man with a grizzled beard and a broken rib let out a long, slow breath. He looked down at his hands. For the first time in 20 years, they were still. The morning air was cool and clean. Hawk stood by his motorcycle outside the prison gates. His ribs had healed. His heart had not. It pounded like a drum against his chest. A month had passed since the trial. A month of waiting. A month of hoping. And now the big iron gates were opening. Danny walked out. He looked different. The prison pallor was still on his face, but there was light in his eyes. He wore a plain shirt and jeans. He carried a small paper bag with everything he owned. He stopped at the gate and blinked at the sun like a man seeing it for the first time. Hawk did not move. He could not move. All the years of guilt and silence and hard living came rushing up at once. His brother. His little brother. Alive, free, Danny saw him. His face crumpled. The tough mask he had worn for years fell away. Hawk walked forward. His boots crunched on the gravel. Each step felt like a mile. Then they were face to face. For a moment, neither spoke. The wind moved between them. Then Danny's arms were around him. Hawk buried his face in his brother's shoulder. The tears came hot and fast. He had not cried in 20 years. He cried now. He cried for the brother he thought he had lost. He cried for the years stolen from both of them. He cried because his heart was so full it hurt. "I thought you were dead," Hawk choked out. "I thought I killed you." Danny pulled back. His eyes were wet too. "You did not kill me. I ran. I hid. I blamed you because it was easier than blaming myself." Hawk shook his head. "None of that matters now." "It matters," Danny said. "It matters to me. You never gave up on me. You could have walked away. You did not." Hawk placed his hand on his brother's shoulder. "You have a daughter. She is waiting for you." Danny's breath caught. His face went pale. "Maya, I have never seen her. I have only seen pictures. Rosa sent them to the prison. But I was too ashamed to look at them for the first year. She is the best thing that ever happened to me," Hawk said, "and she does not know you are coming. I wanted it to be a surprise." Danny wiped his face with his sleeve. "I do not know how to be a father." "Neither do I," Hawk said. "But we will figure it out together." They rode in silence. Hawk drove, and Danny held on tight behind him. The desert stretched out wide and golden. The wind was warm and honest. Danny leaned his head back and let it wash over him. 6 years. 6 years of cement and steel. And now this. The open road. The sky. The smell of sage and dust. They turned down the gravel road that led to Rose's trailer. Hawk killed the engine. The sudden quiet felt holy. Danny slid off the bike. He stood there, trembling. "I am scared." "Good," Hawk said. "That means you care." Rosa stepped out of the trailer. Her face aged 100 years in the last month, but her eyes were bright. She saw Danny and pressed a hand to her heart. "Mi hijo," she whispered. "My son." Danny walked to her. She was small and fragile, but she held him like he was made of glass. She kissed his cheeks and cupped his face in her hands. "Your mother loved you," she said. "I gave you away because I could not care for you. But I never stopped loving you. Not one day." Danny's shoulders shook. He did not say a word. He just held her. Then she pulled back and nodded toward the trailer. "She is inside. She has been drawing all morning. She made a picture for you. She does not know why. She just said she felt like drawing a man with kind eyes." Danny wiped his face. He walked toward the door. His legs felt like water. He reached for the handle. He turned it. The door opened. Maya sat at the kitchen table. Her new prosthetics gleamed in the morning light. She was coloring with fierce concentration. A rainbow, a motorcycle, a man with a beard and kind eyes. She looked up. Her crayon froze. Danny stood in the doorway. His eyes were red. His hands trembled. He tried to smile. He failed. "Hello, Maya," he said. His voice cracked like dry earth. Maya put down the crayon. She pushed back her chair. She walked toward him. Her steps were steady. Her eyes never left his face. She stopped in front of him. She looked up. She studied him like she was memorizing every line. "Daddy?" she asked. The word was so small, so fragile. Danny knelt down. He opened his arms. "I am here, Mija. I am here." Maya fell into his arms. She buried her face in his neck. She held him like she would never let go. And Danny held her back, his body shaking with silent sobs. Hawk stood in the doorway behind them. Rosa leaned against him, her hand on his arm. No one spoke. No one needed to. The morning sun poured through the window. It wrapped them all in golden light. A family, broken and scattered, now whole again. Chapter 22. The club's honor 1 week had passed since Danny walked through the prison gates. 7 days of morning coffee with Rosa at the small kitchen table. 7 days of teaching Maya how to balance on a small electric bike in the dirt behind the trailer. 7 days of watching Danny fall asleep on the living room couch because he still could not believe that soft beds were real. Now Hawk stood in the center of the meeting room at the clubhouse. The walls were lined with men wearing leather vests. Every patch, every scarred face, every pair of eyes he had ridden beside for 2 decades was turned toward him. The overhead lights buzzed softly. Shadows stretched long across the concrete floor. The room was silent. Usually there was loud laughter. Usually there was shouting and the clink of beer bottles. Today there was only a heavy hush that felt like church. The president, a man called Brick, stepped forward. He was older than Hawk, with a silver beard and hands that had spent 40 years turning wrenches. He looked at Hawk with eyes that were unusually soft. "We called this meeting for a reason," Brick said. His voice was gravelly, but it filled the room. "A man left us. He broke our rules. He went behind our backs." Hawk kept his chin up. He felt the old familiar weight settle on his shoulders. He remembered the night they stripped him of his colors. He remembered the heavy sound of the clubhouse door closing behind him for what he thought was the last time. Brick continued. "But that same man did something none of us expected. He did not fight for himself. He fought for a child. He gave up his patch and his place so that a little girl could walk again." Men shifted in their seats. Some looked down at their worn boots. Others looked straight at Hawk with open faces. "We vote on one thing today," Brick said. "Hawk is not the same man who patched in 30 years ago. He is something better, something we want to honor." He lifted a folded black vest. The leather was worn and familiar. Across the back, new needlework had been sewn with bright red thread. The words read, "Brother of the Heart." "This is not a full patch," Brick said. "It is not the same as before. It means he is family even if he never rides a club run again. It means we claim him, and he claims us, not by club law, but by the blood of the soul." A man in the back stood up. It was Jester, the old road captain with the bent nose. "I vote yes," he said, loud and clear. Another man stood. Then another, like heavy stones dropping into still water. The room filled with the sound of boots scraping and deep voices calling out. One by one, they gave their yes. Hawk felt his throat tighten. He had expected anger. He had expected cold shoulders and hard stares. He had not expected this. His eyes burned, but he refused to look away. He nodded at each man who stood. Brick looked around the room. No one objected. Then, "It is done," he said. "Hawk, you are a brother of the heart." The room erupted in applause. It was not the wild noise of a party. It was deep and steady. It sounded like the heartbeat of something strong and alive. Brick raised his hand again. The room went quiet. "There is more," he said. The club talked. "That little girl needs legs that fit. She needs legs that let her run and jump and ride. The club is starting a charity. Every member is putting money in. We are holding a benefit run next month. Every dime goes to kids who need what Maya needs. And Maya gets the first set, paid in full by her uncles." Hawk blinked fast. He looked at the faces around him. These were hard men. They were men who had chosen the open road over warm homes. They were men who did not apologize for their scars. And now they were opening their wallets and their hearts for a 9-year-old girl he had met on a dusty curb. Brick stepped down from the small platform and held out the vest. The leather gleamed under the lights. "Take it, brother," he said. Hawk looked at the vest. It was beautiful. It was everything he had once wanted more than air itself. He looked at the offered gift. He looked at the brotherhood that had raised him and fed him and cast him out and called him home. Then he turned his head. Danny stood near the back wall. He wore a plain shirt and jeans. No leather. No colors. He looked nervous and proud at the same time. Maya stood beside him. She wore a yellow dress and her new prosthetics were hidden beneath the fabric. But she stood straight and tall. She held Danny's hand with both of hers. Her bright eyes moved from the bikers to Hawk. Waiting, Hawk felt the truth settle inside him like warm sand at the bottom of a river. The club had been his home. It had also been his cage. He loved these men. He would always love them. But the road ahead did not need a patch to be real. He looked back at Brick. He shook his head slowly. "Thank you," he said. His voice was rough but steady. "You have been my family. You always will be. But I cannot wear that patch." The room went still. Even the buzzing lights seemed to fade. "My family is here now," Hawk said. He raised his arm and pointed to Danny and Maya. Chapter 23. The new beginning the benefit run happened on a Saturday morning in early spring. The desert sky was a wide blue sheet with not a single cloud to soften the sun. Hawk stood at the edge of the clubhouse parking lot and watched the men line up their motorcycles. Chrome gleamed. Engines rumbled. The air smelled like gasoline and dust, and something that felt strangely like hope. Brick walked over and handed Hawk a folded envelope. It was thick and heavy with cash. "From the boys," he said. Every last dollar. Some of them gave their whole paycheck. Jester sold his spare bike. Hawk took the envelope. He did not open it. He did not need to count it. He knew what it meant. "Thank you," he said. His voice was thick. Brick nodded. "We named it the Danny Miller Ride Fund," he said. "After your brother. Every year we will ride for kids like Maya, kids who need a little help standing tall." Hawk looked down at the envelope. Then he looked out at the line of motorcycles. His old bike was not there. He had sold it weeks ago to pay for a lawyer. But the men had not forgotten him. They had not forgotten his family. "Ride safe," Hawk said. Brick clapped him on the shoulder. Always. 2 weeks later, Hawk drove Maya to a clinic in Phoenix. The building was clean and bright. The floors shined like glass. Maya held his hand as they walked through the doors. Her old prosthetics clicked with every step. They were too small. They were held together with tape and hope. Inside, a kind woman named Dr. Patel greeted them. She knelt down to Maya's eye level and smiled. "I hear you are getting new legs today," she said. Maya nodded. Her eyes were wide. "Will they fit better?" "Much better," Dr. Patel said. "They will be custom-made, just for you. They will not pinch, they will not hurt, and you will be able to run." Maya looked at Hawk. She squeezed his hand. He squeezed back. The fitting took 3 hours. There were measurements and molds and careful tests. Maya was patient. She did not complain once. She sat still while the doctors worked and talked quietly about colors and patterns. "I want them to have flowers," she said. "Little yellow ones, like the flowers that grow behind Grandma Rosa's trailer." Dr. Patel smiled. "Yellow flowers it is." 3 weeks after that, the call came. The prosthetics were ready. Hawk drove Maya back to Phoenix. Danny came with them. He sat in the back seat and kept looking at Maya in the rearview mirror. His eyes were wet, but he did not let the tears fall. "Are you nervous?" Danny asked. Maya shook her head. "No, I am excited." Inside the clinic, Dr. Patel brought out a pair of legs that looked like works of art. They were sleek and smooth. Yellow flowers decorated the sides. The feet fit into sturdy shoes that laced up tight. Maya reached out and touched them. Her small fingers traced the flowers. "They are beautiful," she whispered. Dr. Patel helped her put them on. There was a soft click as the sockets locked into place. Maya stood up slowly. She wobbled. Hawk reached out to steady her, but she shook her head. "I have got it," she said. She took a step, then another. Her feet landed solidly on the floor. No pain, no pinching, no wobble. She walked across the room and back. Then she broke into a smile so bright it could have lit the whole desert. "I am walking," she said. "I am walking and it does not hurt." Danny let out a shaky breath. He knelt down and opened his arms. Maya ran into them. She buried her face in his shoulder. "Thank you, Daddy," she said. It was the first time she had called him that out loud. Danny held her close. His shoulders shook with silent sobs. "Thank you for walking," he whispered back. Hawk stood at the window and watched the two of them. His chest felt full. He did not need a patch on his back to feel like he belonged to something bigger than himself. That evening, they drove back to the desert. The sun was setting. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink. Maya sat in the front seat between Hawk and Danny. Her new legs stretched out in front of her. "Can we stop somewhere?" she asked. Hawk looked at her. Where do you want to go? She smiled. The diner. The one where we met. I want to sit in a real booth and order something from a real menu. Hawk felt his heart swell. He turned the truck down the familiar road. The diner appeared in the distance, small and glowing against the darkening sky. Its neon sign buzzed with soft pink light. They parked and walked inside. The bell above the door jingled. The same waitress from that first day looked up and smiled. "Well, look who is back," she said. Maya walked in on her new legs. She stood tall. She walked straight to the counter with a confidence that made old memories feel brand new. She climbed onto a stool and set her hands on the counter. "I would like a slice of apple pie, please," she said. The waitress laughed. "Coming right up, sweetheart." Hawk and Danny sat on either side of her. The three of them sat in the warm light of the diner. They did not need words. They had pie. They had each other. And for the first time in a long time, they all felt whole. The evening had turned golden. The desert stretched out like a quiet ocean, painted in shades of amber and rose. The diner hummed softly behind them, but Hawk barely heard it. His eyes were on the hill. That same hill. The one where a little girl on the curb had asked him for one thing. Maya stood beside him, her new legs steady, her hand in his. She looked up at him with a smile that knew everything. "Are you ready?" she asked. Hawk nodded. He could not find his voice. His motorcycle sat in the parking lot. It was not the one he had sold. It was a used bike he had rebuilt with his own hands over the last month. Brick had found it for him. The club had paid for it. They had said it was a gift, but Hawk knew better. It was a reminder of who he had been and who he was becoming. He walked Maya to the bike. She reached out and touched the leather seat. Her fingers were small and curious. "Can I really sit on it?" she asked. "You can sit right here," Hawk said. He lifted her gently. She was light, lighter than a bundle of firewood. She settled onto the seat in front of him, her hands gripping the edges. Her legs, with the yellow flowers, dangled above the ground. She looked down and laughed. "I feel tall," she said. Hawk swung his leg over the bike. He settled in behind her. His arms reached around her to the handlebars. He held her steady with his chest and his arms. She fit perfectly, like she had always belonged there. He turned the key. The engine coughed and then roared. The sound filled the evening air. Maya gasped. Her body tensed, then relaxed. "Hold on," Hawk said. She grabbed his forearms. Her grip was strong for such a small girl. He revved the engine again. The rumble shook the ground. Maya let out a squeak, then a laugh, bright and free. The sound bounced off the diner walls and rolled down the hill. Behind them, another engine started. Danny pulled up on a clean black bike. He wore no patch, no colors. He wore a plain jacket and a smile that carried 20 years of lost time. He pulled up beside them and looked at Maya. "You ready, mija?" Danny asked. Maya nodded. Ready. Hawk looked up at the hill. The road was smooth and gray in the fading light. It sloped down into the desert, where the horizon melted into the sun. He had pushed her down this hill on a skateboard. Now he would carry her down it on his own 2 wheels. He leaned in close. His lips were right by her ear. She smelled like soap and apple pie. "You asked me to do one thing for you," he whispered. "You gave me a lifetime." Maya turned her head. Her eyes were wet. She did not speak. She just leaned back into his chest. Hawk let out the clutch. The bike rolled forward. He kept the speed slow, gentle. The wind lifted Maya's hair like a ribbon. She raised her arms, letting go of his forearms, spreading them wide like wings. "Whee!" she shouted. Her laughter floated behind them. It mixed with the rumble of the engine and the warm breath of the desert. Danny rode close behind, his headlight casting a soft glow on the road. The three of them moved together like one beating heart. The sun dipped lower. The sky caught fire. Orange and pink and deep purple bled across the clouds. Maya laughed, and Hawk felt something break open inside him. Something good, something lasting. He looked down the hill. The road went on. Ahead of them, the desert spread out endless and open. He did not know what tomorrow would bring. He did not care. Right now, he had everything. He drove slowly, steadily, letting the moment stretch as long as it could. Maya's arms stayed open. Danny stayed close, and the sun set over the desert as a new family began its ride. I hope you like this story. Please share what's your favorite part of the story and where in the world you are watching from. Have a wonderful day.